Incredible. I've become the original ancestor of humanity. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Judgment of Justice. Minister Xiao was the only one working on the 36th floor of the supervisory department, so when he wasn't talking, the entire floor was completely silent. Fortunately, the small kettle on the table was still bubbling, keeping the atmosphere from feeling overly oppressive. Li Ziyi had been sipping his tea for over 20 minutes, during which Xiaowan had refilled it 7 times. But Xiaowan hadn't asked Li Ziyi a single question, and Li Ziyi hadn't shown any intention of speaking. It was a strange feeling. Li Ziyi felt a faint power surrounding him, and a strange vibration echoed within him, making him feel familiar, close, and at ease. At first, Li Ziyi had been a little nervous meeting Xiaowan. After all, he was known to be able to hold a conversation with any wealthy family in the Federation on an equal footing. But eventually, he felt no pressure at all, and instead, he began to enjoy the quiet comfort of sipping tea. The strong tea, reduced to a bland, clear soup by the two of them, was finally spoken. Go back and wait, okay? Li Ziyi stood up without hesitation, turning to leave. Xiaowan added something else at the back. Those who change with the wind will never be the true core of the supervisory department. The Knights of Justice are with you. Li Ziyi put his right hand on his chest and replied, Justice is with me. Everything was so natural, because the former Che was also a peripheral warrior of the temple. Xiaowan was silent for a while, and after the sound of Li Ziyi's footsteps faded away, he picked up the communicator on the table. Go and investigate, no matter who is involved, find out for me, arrest those who should be arrested, and kill those who should be killed. Li Ziyi went down to the 10th floor and saw that he Xiu, Yao, Laoba, Lao Qi and others were all there. They almost filled the usually deserted 3rd supervisory department. Seeing Li Ziyi coming down, Laoba immediately pulled out a stack of documents. Boss, here's some dirty laundry I've compiled, all related to those reporters out there. With your permission, I'll arrest them all and teach them the consequences of provoking the 3rd supervisory section. Li Ziyi glanced at Laoba, took the documents, rolled them up into a paper tube, and whacked him on the head. You better focus on your own District 48. I just bought a $1 million new motorcycle this morning, and before I could even warm it up, it was stolen in Scissor Lane. Laoba broke into cold sweat. Last night, Boss had instructed us to closely monitor 128 Scissor Lane. And now, just as Boss was in trouble, there was trouble in Scissor Lane. What was Boss suspecting? How were you monitoring them? Was he unable to cover up the situation? Or did he really think I, the section chief, was going to lose my job? Was he just pretending to obey? Boss, give me a day or a half, and I promise to find the car and the people. With extreme nervousness, Laoba stuttered. Stealing is usually a minor matter, but stealing in Scissor Alley is no small matter. Stealing the boss's $1 million motorcycle is a major event. Everyone, go back to your areas. Keep a close eye on things these days. Don't cause any trouble, and don't let anyone set you up. Yes, Chief, we'll go right away. The 8 inspectors agreed and hurried out with their own tools. Once again, only Xiu, Yao, Yuan, and a few other small people remained in the 3rd inspection section. Nothing more, go about yourselves. Li Ziyi waved Xiu and the other 2 inside, telling them to get out. But Yao, Xiu, and the others didn't budge, instead winking at Yuan, the miniature secretary. Yuan quirked his lips and attentively offered Li Ziyi a cup of tea. Then, he cautiously asked, Section Chief, how did the minister's meeting with you go? It seemed everyone was still unsure. The 3rd supervisory section, which had been in decline for years, had just begun to recover, and its success depended entirely on Li Ziyi. No one wanted to lose this key figure. Li Ziyi thought for a moment and said, I don't know. We drank tea for about half an hour, and then the minister just said, go back and wait. Xiao, Xiu, Molun, and Yuan were all stunned. Li Ziyi was a little puzzled. He hadn't lied. He had simply concealed the last 2 sentences he had exchanged with Xiaowan. Boss, you and Minister Xiao drank tea for 30 minutes. Yuan's eyes widened, and he addressed Li Ziyi only as you. Yeah, 7 cups of tea in total. I'm a little full. Xiu sank down on the sofa, staring up at the ceiling, his mind lost. The arrogant Morin walked to the windowsill, took in the scenery outside, and took a deep breath. Yuan, his eyes were filled with stars, looking at Li Zihe as if he were an alien. Section Chief, do you know that among the hundreds of thousands of people in the entire supervision department, no one has ever been able to drink more than 3 cups of tea with a minister, let alone sit face to face with him for 30 minutes? Seeing Li Zihe's confusion, Yao explained, most people wouldn't last more than 10 minutes sitting with a minister. I don't know how many extremely smart corrupt officials in the Federation couldn't even last 3 cups of tea under the minister's supervision. Li Zihe blinked. Maybe I drank too fast, I can't stand it anymore. Go buy lunch. Morin walked out, his face as dark as if he was owed 8 million. Xiu said, don't be offended, Chief. Molan is simply envious of you. After all, facing justice, not many people can hold out that long, Xiu explained to Li Zihe in detail. It turned out that the faint power Li Zihe had sensed on the 36th floor was Xiaowan's supernatural gift, justice. If a person harbored evil thoughts or guilt, under the influence of that faint power, their spirit would quickly collapse, revealing all their crimes. But Li Zihe had persisted for 30 minutes, drinking 7 cups of tea without uttering a single word. He could be said to have achieved the legendary state of clear conscience, justice. Having heard Lan chant so often in the hidden secret realm, Li Zihe didn't sense anything unusual. And yet, he had felt a strange sense of familiarity just now. But then, Li Zihe realized that he had, unknowingly, become Versailles, and, inexplicably, he had been cleared of suspicion of murder. Molan quickly returned with lunch, but it consisted of only a few simple fast food dishes. This displeased the secretary, accustomed to receiving Li Zihe's money for sumptuous lunches and a few snacks along the way. Not only had he taken her job, but he was also being so stingy. But Molan's eyes were venomous, and before Yuan he could even open his mouth to complain, he said coldly, don't be so disgusted. The restaurants outside are packed. Why don't you eat at the department cafeteria? There's a large media gathering outside. And even more protesters. This is getting more and more interesting. Li Zihe walked to the window and looked out. He saw that the surrounding streets were filled with vehicles and pedestrians, converging towards the supervisory department. A large white banner had been hung at the entrance of the supervisory department, with large, blood-red characters prominently displayed. Punish those who practice fake justice and abolish the privileges of fake justice. Chapter 102 The Unspeakable Past. By 7 o'clock in the evening, the protesters outside the supervisory department had reached tens of thousands. However, they didn't make a scene, instead adopting a very rational sit-in, allowing dozens of surrounding media reporters to pose for photos. Li Zihe could see clearly from the window that these people weren't just some so-called spontaneous protesters, there was a strict management system behind them. It was past closing time at the supervisory department, and except for a few staff members who remained on duty, everyone had already left for home. The protesters didn't hinder the departing supervisory department staff. However, Li Zihe didn't leave. Xiu, and Molan showed no intention of leaving. Secretary Yuan hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly stayed with him. Everyone, go home. I'll stay in the supervisory department. Who else dares to assassinate me? Li Zihe didn't want to waste their time and urged them to go back first. After all, the protesters outside couldn't say how long the sit-in would last. Boss, we're not protecting you, we're monitoring you. If those bastards frame you again, we'll be your alibi. Yao shook her head, explaining the necessity of several people accompanying Li Zihe. Li Zihe was silent for a moment, then smiled and said, after this incident, the Li family might keep an eye on you, and it might be more difficult for you to get promoted in the future. Yao sneered, pointing her finger at Xiu and said, this guy worked his way up to become the battalion commander of a mobile infantry battalion in the 3rd Army. Because he was unwilling to take the blame for a wealthy family's son, he was directly sued in a military court. Ever since then, he has been on the blacklist of a wealthy family. It was only after he was transferred to the supervisory department that things got better, but he was promoted slower than others. He was at level C many years ago, but he is still an inspector now because the supervisory department has also been infiltrated by wealthy families. Yao pointed at Morin again. That handsome guy in the first military academy of the Federation competed with a rich kid for his girlfriend, and crippled him in a duel. He was directly imprisoned for a year. He bribed his connections to be transferred to the supervisory department, and spent 3 years on the most remote planet before coming back. The former ace pilot seedling of the first military academy was sentenced to a lifetime ban on piloting mechas. Do you think he would have a good impression of the rich? Section Chief, do you understand now? Our 172 supervisory group is not favored by the rich, and we don't want to stick to the rich. If we can see the rich suffer a setback, we will be very happy. Li Zhe has read the information of Yao and others. It is true that their superpower level does not match their rank, but he didn't know that there are so many black histories that are not recorded in the archives. What about you? Yao, how did you end up in the 172nd supervisory group? Yao's face darkened, and she sneered, lowering her head. Actually, Section Chief, about Yao, he Xiu, standing next to him, had just begun to speak when Molun interrupted. We in the 172nd supervisory group have agreed not to delve into Yao's past. Li Zhe was stunned for a moment, then chuckled, I really don't mean to pry into your privacy. I'm just looking at you. Li Zhe hesitated, gazing intently at Yao's features. Yao asked curiously, Boss, what are you looking at me for? He Xiu, Yuan and Molun also looked at Li Zhe. Then they saw Li Zhe act like a fortune teller, tapping Yao's brow with his finger as he spoke. According to the temple's widely circulated selection method for female cultivators, I see that you, Yao, with your penetrating eyes, well-proportioned eyebrows and beard, dense forehead hair, and perfectly aligned legs and hips, are clearly the right fit. Li Zhe hesitated again. If this were on the overpass, he would have gently rubbed his thumb and index finger. The gossipy secretary, Yuan couldn't help but act like a perfect supporting actor. Section Chief, what exactly is Sister Yao? Bang! Molun slapped Yuan on the back of the head, knocking him unconscious to the ground. He then glared at Li Zhe fiercely. Li Zhe remained unmoved. Yao, you're clearly a virgin. I don't know why you're so flirtatious all the time. Is this a hidden talent for seduction? Or do you find it fun to flirt and seduce people? He Xiu was stunned, and Molun was dumbfounded. Yao instantly flushed from face to neck, and then tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Woo woo, Yao first stifled a low sob. Woo woo woo, then, unable to contain herself any longer, she burst into tears, completely undressed. The gushing tears washed away the delicate makeup on her face, revealing a pale undertone that had been concealed for who knows how long. My clothes were torn when I killed that bastard. But no one believed me. No one believed I was kind, and no one believed I was clean. I was taken out of prison. I thought I was finally free. But what greeted me was shame. Yao sobbed as she spoke. He Xiu and Molun tried to interrupt her several times, but she refused with a somewhat neurotic and arrogant attitude. Li Zhe could sense a glimmer of determination in her heart. Perhaps it was this subtle perseverance that had sustained this tragic girl to this day. Just before I committed suicide, my teacher rushed in and showed the shield badge of the supervisory department. It was then that I realized that there are still people in this world who dare to uphold justice in front of the rich and powerful. The teacher said that I have super talents in the spiritual system and can learn the chant of justice and become a respected preacher. It was really an unforgettable happy time. Yao was obviously immersed in memories. As she narrated the past, a faint glow appeared on her face. Later, the teacher died, in a very unclear manner. In his last communication to me, he told me to become a preacher, to teach peacefully within the supervisory department, and not to fight anyone else. Yao smiled bitterly. I didn't become the preacher the teacher had hoped for. I became a psychic super warrior. I tried everything to become powerful, but I couldn't escape the fate of killing or being killed, but I tried really hard, really hard. Later, I finally realized that I didn't have the talent to be a preacher. The teacher was just comforting me, trying to rekindle my longing for life. Yao spoke a lot, and by the time she finished, she fell into deep confusion. She suddenly opened her lips and sang softly. The song was dry, the melody was stiff, the pronunciation was obscure and difficult to understand, and there was no beauty to be found. Him? A chant of justice. Although Yao Iao's voice was dry and unpleasant, Li Zhe immediately recognized the song and the hymn Chen Tong sang. But Chen Tong's chant was graceful and melodious, cleansing the soul like a clear spring. Yao Iao's voice, on the other hand, was dry and stilted, like a poorly timed rap, hammering at the heartstrings, stirring up waves of violent impulses. If Chen Tong's chant was like a plump, delicate girl, her every smile and frown radiating elegance, then Yao Iao's was like a rough-hewn man, his every move radiating a violent force. But when Li Zhe listened to Chen Tong's chant, he would quietly savor the gentle touch of the voice. But now, after hearing Yao Iao's rap, he felt a subtle urge to join in. The kill inscription began to vibrate, and Li Zhe's consciousness began to drift between the secret realm and reality, the two worlds merging in his mind. Before him was the 10th floor office of the supervisory department. Xiu sat on the sofa, Mulan leaned against the windowsill, and Yao Iao, huddled in the corner with her hands folded on her knees, chanted with deep emotion. But the next moment, Li Zhe found himself in the slaughterland, only this time he wasn't alone as usual. Instead, he was among a group of rough, aggressively armored men, swarming the insect swarm ahead. All of them were chanting Ode to Justice. The song was rough, harsh, the melody high and resounding, a near-death cry, stirring the blood in their chests and radiating a powerful force. Suddenly, Li Zhe was back in the office of the 3rd supervisory section. Xiu and Mulan also caught the attention, humming along with Yao Iao, their eyes fixed on her. Their singing was even more outrageous than Yao Iao's, but the atmosphere of the three men's humming resonated faintly with the rough men in Li Zhe's slaughterland. Li Zhe dragged Yuan He, who lay unconscious on the ground, outside his office. Then, he spoke softly, echoing Yao Iao's voice in a low voice. His pronunciation is so light that it is almost inaudible. His pronunciation is very short, as if he is only adding a few syllables occasionally to Yao Iao's singing and correcting a few inappropriate turns. But Yao Iao's originally dry singing voice suddenly seemed to have met the lead singer, and suddenly became high-pitched and loud, magically possessing the power to inspire passion. Thanks to the book Friend Zodiac Ox, so-called Lao Nuo for the reward, thank you. Chapter 103. It's serious. After nightfall, the reporters and protesters gathered outside the supervisory department grew bolder. In the darkness, they were like thieves breaking into a house and picking a lock. They felt the cover of night would make their actions less likely to be seen. One reporter pulled out his communicator, whispered a few words, then gritted his teeth and, hidden in the crowd, launched into an angry chant. Punish the scum, abolish privileges, and restore freedom to the people of the Federation. Hand over the murderers, uphold federal law, down with the temple's lackeys, long live the Interstellar Federation. A single stone stirred 1,000 ripples. With the first person leading the charge, others immediately followed, and the thousands of shouts gradually coalesced into a wave, roaring towards the supervisory department building at the center of the storm. The reporters, too, excitedly began reporting from the scene, their microphones in hand. However, they either kept their lights off, leaving only dark silhouettes on the live feed, or wore masks or other obscuring features, obscuring their features. Of all the reporters, there was only one exception. Li Engxi turned on the video communicator's fill light, making herself look more energetic and capable. Everyone around her automatically kept a distance of more than 10 meters from her, not only for fear of being accidentally caught in her camera's view, but also because of the two fierce bodyguards surrounding her. The video communicator was connected, and an image of a large office came from the other side. There was no one in the office, only a few antique-style melee weapons hanging on the wall, and a piece of ancient armor standing in the corner. Li Engxi raised the communicator and looked around, transmitting the chaotic image around the supervision department. Big sister, let me show you this lively scene. Third brother's incident this time is quite serious. No one appeared on the other end of the communicator, but a voice as cold as a knife came. No matter how big the incident caused by this idiot is it still stupid? Xiaowan, on the 36th floor, sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the increasingly excited crowd below, his broad brows hardening. Buzz buzz buzz, a call came through the special line on the desk. Xiaowan answered without saying a word, waiting for the other party to speak. Minister Qiao. This time, things seem a bit troublesome. You know, public opinion cannot be violated. As an elected president, I must stand on the side of the people. Do you think we can discuss the last issue when we have time? Xiaowan spoke, and his first sentence was very uncivilized. Xiaowan, is there anything clean under your butt? The president on the other side was obviously stunned for a moment, then said, Xiaowan, you are so old, why haven't you learned manners yet? Xiaowan shouted, I'm asking you, do you have shit under your butt? If you do, hold your butt together and behave yourself, or I'll flip it in your face. Snap. Xiaowan ended the call, his face full of cold frost. Ever since Xiaowan, a distant relative of his, was elected president 4 years ago, he'd suspected the wealthy families were plotting against the supervisory department. Otherwise, why would they elect a worthless minor as president? HMPH. An idiot who doesn't even know he's been sold. Xiaowan cursed bitterly, then sat down again and stared out the window quietly. Suddenly, a faint singing voice rose from downstairs, causing Xiaowan's heart to tremble slightly. Huh? The crowd around the supervisory department grew increasingly turbulent, gradually becoming uncontrollable. Liangxi, at the center of the crowd, was becoming increasingly excited, as if he was enjoying watching the excitement and showing off his skills to the public. Sister, I heard that except for the Qin family, the other families have already started to take action, and they are now waiting for a spark that can ignite the conflict. Liangxi found a flower bed and stood on it, looking down at the crowd around her and shouting, Sister, look, this is the spark that will witness history. But while Liangxi was speaking passionately here, the sister on the other end of the communicator said coldly, Speak. What do you want to talk to me about? If you don't tell me, I'll hang up. No. Liangxi quickly surrendered, and said with a smile, Sister, you are wise and powerful. Free translation, I really can't hide it from you. I was thinking that if this matter gets out of hand, you can help me save someone. Save who? Save a great boy, Liangxi said excitedly. I'll send you a video now. I am so fascinated by him, I want to treat him as my most beloved pet. Sister interrupted Liangxi directly and said coldly, Get to the point. Liangxi gave an awkward smile. It's the section chief in the supervisory department. He had a minor conflict with third brother, and then he and his men took advantage of him. I only want him. From now on, there will be no more Li Zhe in this world, only my little sweetheart. Big sister fell silent. Countless people in the Federation were waiting for the storm, and yet Liangxi had set her sights on the spark that ignited it. Big sister? With your abilities, this shouldn't be difficult, right? Shut up. Liangxi shut up in grievance. Knowing her big sister, she knew her dream was likely to be dashed. Liangxi, what's that sound? Liangxi looked around in surprise, only to hear a thunderous roar. Don't say anything, said big sister. Turn the sound sensitivity to maximum, and slowly rotate the communicator. Liangxi followed her instructions and soon picked up a distinctive chant. Big sister, isn't this the chant of justice? 200 yuan a disc on the black market, and it's a high-fidelity copy from a preacher from the supervisory department. Shut up. This time, big sister was clearly furious. Her fierce aura seemed to burst through the communicator, causing Li Unhe to shrink back. The chanting was intermittent and indistinct, but big sister listened attentively for a long time, until suddenly, a cry of terror erupted from the crowd. Look, we're surrounded, it's over, it's the supervisory department special forces. Suddenly, a large number of black-clad combat troops appeared on the outskirts of the demonstrators at the supervisory department, armed with live ammunition, and began to advance on the crowd. They're arresting people. Run! Chaos erupted in an instant, with tens of thousands of people frantically fleeing in all directions. Unsurprisingly, a stampede ensued. Li Unhe nimbly leaped from the flower bed and, protected by 2 bodyguards, rushed back into the supervisory department, quickly changing into their uniforms. Sister, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I need to run away now. The supervisory department is serious this time. Chapter 104 So perfect. The demonstration in front of the supervisory department ultimately devolved into a human tragedy. The thunderous roars of protest lasted only a dozen minutes before degenerating into shrill screams and cries of panic. One moment, people thought they were safe hiding in the darkness. The next, dozens of drones blanketed the sky with spotlights, revealing no one. One moment, everyone believed the supervisory department would uphold its millennia-old creed of fairness and justice, treating civilians with kindness and protecting the vulnerable. The next, countless supervisory department soldiers and armored vehicles surged from the outside of the crowd, capturing those they could and crushing those they couldn't. We're not here to demonstrate, We're here to watch the fun." Several young men and women, facing the ferocious soldiers, repeatedly pleaded for mercy, only to be met with fists and handcuffs. Many media reporters began to discard any notion of identity, pretending to be ordinary citizens, obediently raising their hands and getting into the cars. However, the subsequent rigorous identity checks shattered their illusions. No matter you are here to demonstrate or just to join in the fun, no matter you are working for money or you are really here to pursue freedom, as long as you pose a threat to the authority of the supervisory department, you will be severely punished. Faced with a siege and kidnapping of morality, the supervisory department, which has always regarded itself as the guardian of citizens, only lasted one day before showing its ferocious fangs. This is just like the barbarians in ancient times who drove civilians to attack the city. The soldiers on the city wall may feel soft-hearted and heartbroken, but the swords and guns in their hands should never tremble in the slightest. Buzz 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 ding 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 ding. On the 36th floor of the supervisory department, various communication equipment rang one after another, but Xiaowan sat steadily in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the scenery outside with a faint smile. "I gave you a whole day's buffer time, and now you only think of begging for mercy from me. Isn't it too late? Answer the phone. Answer the phone. Answer the phone." A distinctive ringtone echoed, and Xiaowan frowned. He answered the call in a deep voice. "Miss Li, are you involved in today's events?" Big Sister's voice rang out coldly. "Xiaowan, do you think Li Xiaowan, would get involved in something so foolish?" Xiaowan's thoughts raced, unable to guess the other party's intentions, so he bluntly asked, "Then why are you calling at this hour? My sister Inxi is outside watching the fun. Tell your people to be careful and not to hurt her. Also, I want all the information on Li Zhe. All of it." Big Sister Li Xiaowan emphasized the last half of the sentence. "Li Xiaowan, what are you going to do?" Xiaowan's tone suddenly sharpened. "You've been so arrogant in the military these past few years. Have you forgotten what size footprints are?" Li Xiaowan was so taken aback by Xiaowan's rebuke that she remained silent for a full 20 seconds. "I have no intentions against Li Zhe, but Li Boyan is a member of the Jingchuan Li family after all. I must know the details of what happened and his motives in order to be fair and impartial." Xiaowan was also stunned for a moment, then asked coldly, "You want to intervene in this matter, to settle it?" Li Xiaowan said frankly, "If this is Li Boyan's conspiracy, I will give you an explanation, but if it's Li Zhe who's plotting against the Li family, then I want to take him away." "Taking him away won't be easy." Xiaowan regained her composure and said calmly, "He's someone sent by the temple. You can try to take him away, somewhere in the distant starry sky." In a spacious office decorated with ancient armor, a woman in military uniform hung up the phone, her brow furrowed in a heroic frown. She paced the office twice and clicked on a newly received video. The young man in the video was sharp and handsome, like the sharp blade of a peerless divine weapon, his brow condensed with an indomitable spirit. "It's actually someone from the temple. This is really not going to be easy." On the 10th floor of the supervisory department, the roaring and shouting, the ghostly howling, and the wailing of ghosts from below had no effect on the few people in the 3rd supervisory section. The stunned mini-secretary was still asleep, and the 3 members of Supervisory Team 172 were all in a strange trance. As Yao chanted, He Xiu and Mo Lun felt as if they had heard the call of war drums, their auras surging like waves. Li Zhe dragged a table and a chair and quietly blocked the corridor entrance of the 3rd supervisory section, protecting the 3 of them. Even if he had never eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. Li Zhe roughly understood the significance of the chant of justice to the supervisory department, the Knights of Justice. This was a kind of awakening and inheritance of superpowers, a different method of superpower evolution from the Federation's genetic enhancement. It required a much more demanding talent from the awakener, but the upper limit of growth was naturally higher. The supervisory department's preachers were equivalent to the temple's chants, but with weaker abilities and fewer in number, making inheritance opportunities within the supervisory department exceptionally rare. Li Zhe only stayed at the door for a while, and sure enough, many colleagues from the supervisory department came to spy. He placed an automatic rifle on the table in front of him, and his sharp eyes frightened everyone so much that they dared not approach. However, with several consecutive violent source energy fluctuations in the 3rd supervisory department, more people rushed over and gathered at the end of the corridor to whisper. After the noise outside the supervisory department building subsided, Several people in the third supervisory department finally returned to normal. Mini Secretary Yuan He got up from the ground, touched the back of her head dizzily, and pursed her mouth as if she was about to cry. But she suddenly remembered something and ran into the bathroom. There was a mirror on the sink in the bathroom, and Yuan He almost put her face against it, reflecting her face like Rimu Yoko. Clear eyes, well-proportioned eyebrows and beard, she muttered, looking around in a mystical way, mumbling, fine formed hair, harmonious waist and hips, wow, I'm so perfect. Li Ziyi, with his excellent hearing, was immediately furious. But that wasn't all. Yao, who had just emerged from the office, was noticeably more charming, her aura still unsteady, her strength clearly having taken a significant leap forward. But her first words upon seeing Li Ziyi were also quite off-key. Section Chief, can you tell who's a slut? How do you tell? He had only heard about the temple's selection method for female cultivators in the secret realm, and had no idea how to apply it. Li Ziyi's ability to determine Yao's true identity was clearly due to the vampire's gifted sense of smell. Li Ziyi said awkwardly, the temple's selection of female cultivators is just a legend. It's said that it requires the temple's unique aura guiding technique. I'm just a warrior, the best I can do is tell who's a novice. Sluts were actually easier to spot than novice cultivators, but Li Ziyi didn't dare admit to possessing such a super gossipy ability. Because women don't care who's a virgin, but they're definitely interested in who's a slut. Yao licked her lips again, blinked, and asked, so, boss, do you understand Gukali? What is Gukali? Li Ziyi asked in surprise, leaving Yao stunned. Chapter 105 Who are you trying to fool? Ancient Kali is a very ancient language. It's said that the temple houses many ancient texts from the previous civilization, all written in Kali. The supervisory department also has some Kali manuscripts. The chant of justice is in Kali, Yao explained in detail, then looked at Li Ziyi with confusion and asked, boss, don't you even know this? I don't know, Li Ziyi answered confidently. He didn't know what Kali was, but he knew it. There was no contradiction. After awakening the art inscription, he gained mastery of several rare ancient languages. The vampires are known for their profound knowledge, but even the centuries-old Mu wouldn't recognize these languages. Furthermore, in the hidden secret realm, Che and Lan often encountered ancient Kali during their interactions. However, Li Ziyi only had a general understanding of this ancient language and had no idea it was called ancient Kali in the second civilization. Boss, you don't know what ancient Kali is, so just now what did I do? Li Ziyi interrupted, weren't you the one chanting chant of justice? I didn't do anything. Yao was speechless. In her confused state just now, she clearly felt the faint but clear leading singing. There were only a few people in the third supervisory section. Yao was very familiar with the abilities of Xiu and Molun. If it wasn't Li Ziyi, could it be Yuan He? At this time, Xiu and Molun came out of the office of the third supervisory section. Seeing Li Ziyi setting up a table to block the entrance to the corridor, they realized that Li Ziyi had been protecting the three of them. Xiu was obviously a little ashamed. Originally, the three of them stayed to guard Li Ziyi, but now they were being protected by Li Ziyi instead. Li Ziyi sensed the change in Xiu's aura, which had also improved by a large step, but Molun's aura did not react much. Not wanting to expose his powerful perception, he casually asked Yao, you've been chanting for so long. What have you all gained? Yao smiled, then paused for a moment before saying, boss, gains in strength are actually minor. My biggest gain today is that you brought me back to myself when I was almost lost. I sincerely apologize for my ridiculous words and actions in the past. Yao bowed deeply to Li Ziyi, making him feel a little embarrassed. Actually, Yao, you're quite nice when you're charming, but do you understand the difference between being charming and being coquettish? Yao's face flushed again, and she bit her lip and shook her head. Being flirtatious means flirting with anyone, no matter who you are. Whenever you see a handsome guy, you flirt with him. Li Ziyi moved his finger subtly, pointing at Xiu beside him. Charm is different. It's a display of your charm to the one you love, a privilege reserved for the man you like. Yao was stunned for a long moment before her eyes slowly regained their vitality. Suddenly, she spun around and flitted to Xiu's side, her skirt fluttering, her eyes sparkling with allure. Handsome, can we go for a drink? Xiu gaped in confusion. But then he caught a hint of trepidation in Yao's eyes, a look she had never seen before. Xiu endured it for a long time before finally giving a straight man smirk. Sure, although Yao and Xiu had agreed to drink, they didn't go out to a bar. Instead, they had Molun buy some drinks, and the two of them found a quiet corner to sip. The current situation remains unclear, but the 172nd Supervisory Group is still acting as Li Ziqi's monitor, providing him with a 24-hour alibi. Yuan He has fallen asleep on the sofa in the reception room. Moran sits alone in a chair by the hallway entrance, taking over Li Ziqi's duties. In his office, Li Ziqi pulls out a book he carries with him. The last page is inscribed in ancient Calic script. Twilight Continent, Crimson Council, Twilight Library. Godstar, Temple, Elders Library. Federation, Supervisory Department, Library Number 7. There's an ancient Calic manuscript in the Supervisory Department. Xiaowan? Masked Man? Where are you now? At the interstellar jump point near planet A16, 3 starships complete their jump with a surge of spatial energy, their massive figures appearing. 2 of these 3 starships are fast destroyers of the Supervisory Department, while the third, a fast communications ship, unexpectedly bears the Temple's cross emblem. Black Rabbit, maintain alert. White Rabbit, follow us as we descend to A16. This expedition is extremely important, and you must. The Black Rabbit was a cunning Rabbit-class destroyer, equipped with regional battlefield detection and command systems. However, the Temple communications ship, the weakest of the 3, assumed command of the fleet. Wu Wu, the commander on the Temple communications ship, had barely finished his words when the Black Rabbit, with its powerful battlefield detection capabilities, sounded an enemy alert. Urgent enemy, 63 degrees starboard, range 185,000, bloodline Starfleet. At least 1 heavy cruiser. The Black Rabbit's intelligence officer quickly reported the enemy situation to the entire fleet. The entire crew in the starship's command room frantically moved, quickly initiating emergency combat procedures. The piercing battle alarm echoed mournfully throughout the starship. The captain of the Black Rabbit called the Temple starship commander, Brother Palmas. The fleet is still within a safe distance. Shall we initiate an emergency evasive maneuver? Seconds later, a cold voice echoed from the Temple starship. Do you think we can escape? Prepare for battle. Temple warriors never show their backs to the enemy. With that, the Temple communication starship, lacking heavy firepower, advanced on the Blood Clan fleet, with the 2 Overwatch star destroyers trailing behind. If the Blood Clan and the Federation were a subtle rivalry, then the Temple and the Blood Clan were sworn enemies from a past life. Meeting without a fight was rarer than a woman's sincere reconciliation. But now, relying solely on the Black Rabbit and White Rabbit star destroyers, they dared to challenge the Blood Clan's heavy cruisers. It would be like driving 1,000 miles to get killed, and even then, they'd have to pay for their own gas. Everyone felt ejected, filled with resentment towards Brother Palmas of the Temple. While turning around and running now would undoubtedly be dangerous, there was still a slight chance of escape, wasn't there? Attention, the Vampire fleet is not combat ready. Attention. The Vampire fleet is not combat ready. The intelligence officer's voice was urgent, carrying a strong hidden meaning. They haven't shown any signs of action yet, so don't try to get yourself killed. Brother Palmas of the Temple coldly ordered, maintain combat readiness and continue approaching A16. The crews of the Black Rabbit and White Rabbit began to curse. Shouldn't they avoid direct contact and show no hostility at this moment? Why are you so eager to approach? Rushing to eat a feast and then eating a heavy meal? You'll choke, you know? As the 2 sides drew closer, the Black Rabbit's battlefield detection system finally captured a clear image of the Vampire fleet. The Vampire fleet was scattered around a field of interstellar debris. Several search and rescue craft were nimbly moving through the wreckage, collecting the stiffened bodies of humanoids. They were collecting the bodies of the Red Rock City soldiers who had fallen in the ambush on A16. Brother Palmas, the vampires haven't shown any hostility so far. Should we change course and keep our distance? But before the Temple starship could respond, a commanding voice came over the interstellar public channel from the Vampire fleet. Young men of the Temple, what are you doing here? Brother Palmas was silent for a few seconds, then replied proudly, seeking the battle relics of our Temple comrades and commemorating the heroic deeds of our fallen warriors. Excuse me, old vampire, what are you doing here? The captain of the Black Rabbit wanted to punch Brother Palmas in the face. Why are you A biological evolution expert, acting so heroically. You're going to die if you don't act pretentious? Can't you see those vampires collecting the bodies of their own? Can you not add fuel to the fire? Me? He, the vampire replied, I'm here to study the evolution of the bugs on planet A16 and assess their future threat to your Federation. Thomas was stunned. Studying whether the bugs' evolution was abnormal and assessing their threat to humanity, wasn't that exactly why they were here? Who are you kidding? Chapter 106. Is it over yet? A16. 3 starships began descending toward the planet's surface, following nearly identical descent trajectories. The first 2 starships were the Temple's communications vessel and the Overwatch's White Rabbit Star Destroyer. Not far behind them, lurking not far behind, was the Blood Clan's heavy cruiser. These vampires must have some other, more serious conspiracy, was the consensus of everyone aboard the first 2 starships. Taking off and landing through the atmosphere for a heavy cruiser would not only consume a significant amount of power but also negate its formidable battlefield control capabilities. If it remained in orbit, it would pose a threat to any target attempting to enter or leave planet A16. But now, the Blood Clan had unnaturally landed their most powerful starship, claiming it was conducting some insect evolution research. Who would believe such a lie? The Temple's Thomas claimed they were there to visit the battle relics of the Temple warriors, so after landing, they accurately followed the designated coordinates and headed for the valley where Chen Tong and the others had fought. The Blood Clan's heavy cruiser starship didn't turn, still following behind with bad intentions. Brother Thomas, the Blood Clan starship has also begun to slow down. Are we landing at our planned location? The White Rabbit's captain expressed concern. Without hesitation, Thomas coldly declared, White Rabbit, maintain aloft alert. All mechas immediately conduct low-altitude rappels and secure all strategic points around the valley. They haven't deterred us in the air, and they certainly won't be able to on the ground. The White Rabbit's captain, though somewhat helpless, had no choice but to obey. He also believed his own ground forces were formidable. Because this was a Temple-led expedition, the 2 starships were equipped with more than double the mech force, providing an overwhelming advantage even against the standard mech battalions of the Blood Clan cruisers. As the Temple starship and the White Rabbit Star Destroyer descended, the 2 Temple mechas, plus 6 from the supervisory department, a total of 8 mechas, emerged and charged aggressively towards key points in the valley. A minute later, a Blood Clan heavy cruiser hovered nearby. Its 2 lower compartments opened, and several mech-specific landing cables descended. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. The White Rabbit's captain's face darkened. The Blood Clan cruiser's mech configuration was surprisingly over-equipped. More importantly, he saw the markings of the Scarlet Council's direct search team on the armor of several mechas. 14, 15, 16, 17, all pilots, maintain composure and avoid any senseless drastic actions. We must ensure the successful completion of this scientific expedition. After counting the last mech, the White Rabbit's captain immediately gave orders to the Overwatch mechas, no longer consulting Brother Thomas at the Temple. Brother Thomas, however, remained silent, tacitly approving the White Rabbit captain's cowardly behavior. After landing on the ground, the Blood Clan mechas didn't compete with the Overwatch or Temple mechas for tactical points. Instead, they formed groups and conducted a rapid search of the valley. When Chen Tong and the survivors left, they blew up the wreckage of the Mu Guang flagship, stranded on the planet's surface. The valley was devoid of anything of value. Yet, these mechas searched meticulously, picking up even the most insignificant debris and analyzing the weather traces left by the insect carcasses. Are they really here to study the insect's evolution? Thomas wondered, as the actions of the Blood Clan mechas certainly seemed to indicate they were studying their combat methods and corresponding danger levels. But why would the Blood Clan mobilize a search team directly under the Crimson Council for a mission that could be accomplished by a single scientific expedition? 10 minutes later, half of the Blood Clan mechas dispersed to search the valley's periphery, while the remaining mechas, oblivious to the surroundings, continued their search and analysis within. Send someone to quietly follow them and observe their true intentions. Thomas issued another order, but this time his plan was completely thwarted. In terms of stealth and anti-tracking capabilities, the vampire pilots were clearly a notch above the Inspectorate's pilots. Forget stealth, even a blatant pursuit would ultimately leave them completely outclassed. But 2 hours later, a wave of surprised voices echoed through the vampire's encrypted channel. I found a worm nest here, but it's clearly abandoned. Where have all the worms gone? My nest is empty too. It doesn't look like the death of the worm queen caused a genocide. There aren't many worm carcasses, Lord Hayden. No signs of worm activity have been detected within a 200-mile radius. Based on biological data analysis, it seems they've relocated en masse. A handsome vampire man sat in the command room of a vampire heavy cruiser. He, after listening to the report from the mecha pilots outside, was also puzzled. Vampires consider worms disgusting, so their research on them is limited, but that doesn't mean they haven't studied them. The current behavior of these worms doesn't align with the information the vampires have. At that moment, the pilot in charge of searching the valley reported, "Your Excellency, we've found a tattered mobile suit, a standard model for our vampires." Marcus Hayden's eyes lit up, and he calmly ordered, "Bring it here for me." A few minutes later, Marcus Hayden came upon a severely battered mobile suit. Despite its shattered state, it still offered basic protection, and many of its components had been modified, allowing it to function. The vampires, observing the visible battle scars on its armor and weapons, couldn't help but picture a powerful warrior, alone and unassisted, fighting in the wilderness. Seal this mobile suit and activate confidentiality. No one is allowed to leak any information. Marcus Hayden finished his order and told his attendants, "Prepare the suit for me. I'll personally inspect it." A few minutes later, a vampire suit left the heavy star cruiser and sped off in a distant direction. Hayden piloted the suit for 300 or 400 miles before discovering signs of insect activity. It took him some time to finally find the entrance to a Zerg nest. After descending 1,000 meters through the sticky tunnel, he finally reached the core of the hive. Why is it hidden so deep? Marcus Hayden was deeply puzzled. According to the information the vampires possessed, Zerg typically built their nests within 100 or 200 meters underground, which was optimal for hunting and reproduction. This 1,000-meter deep hiding clearly had a significant and unusual reason. Just as Marcus Hayden was about to reach the Zerg's core, he discovered that a large section of the underground tunnel ahead suddenly narrowed, making it impossible for his massive mech to pass through. However, since he was studying the Zerg, Marcus Hayden had prepared well. He removed a set of tunneling attachments from the back of his mech and, with a few clicks, expanded the passage. This was why mechas became the primary ground combat weapon. By adjusting various functional attachments, they could, like a person, transform into a warrior, a worker, a carpenter, or even a stick man. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Marcus Hayden had just finished widening the barrier hole when a fierce mental wave from the core of the insect swarm assaulted him, conveying an angry thought. "Are you guys done yet?" Marcus Hayden was a bit bewildered, but he seemed to have guessed why these insect nests were 1,000 meters deep. Chapter 107. You are far worse than that person. Faced with the Queen's intense mental assault, Marcus Hayden's mind was shaken. Fighting back waves of dizziness, he sent a message, "I bear no ill will towards you, I'm merely searching for clues." The Queen didn't respond to Hayden's message, but neither did she send her insect minions to attack him. So Marcus Hayden continued, "Not long ago, a group of people landed on this planet and settled in a valley not far away. Have you spotted any unusual individuals among them?" The Queen's mental fluctuations resurfaced, and Hayden felt a strange sensation. The Queen seemed to be fearful. In the vampire records of insects were described as disgusting, low-level life forms, while the Queen was a fearless, reckless being. Their powerful bodies and mental strength made them ferocious and conceited. So, what could possibly be the entity that so frightened them? The Queen finally spoke to Marcus Hayden. "Why should I trust you? What qualifies you to speak to me?" Hayden smiled proudly, his blood surging through his body, and a river of blood enveloped the area hundreds of meters around him. "I am a descendant of the Blood River. We are honest and strong, you liar." The Queen of Zergs let out a sharp hiss before Hayden could finish his words. Her rage, accompanied by a powerful mental assault, enveloped Marcus Hayden. All the Zerg swarms received the Queen's command and attacked Marcus Hayden from all sides. The frenzied surge caused the entire hive to shake violently. Marcus Hayden was also furious. The pride of a vampire noble prevented him from retreating, but he charged forward without hesitation. An hour later, Marcus Hayden stood in the hive's core underground hall. But it was empty. The Queen of Zergs had already fled with her elite minions. "Ha ha ha, you actually abandoned your own nest and fled. Did I really frighten it so much?" A proud smile crossed Marcus Hayden's face. According to Zerg literature, the construction of a hive is resource-intensive and one of the Queen's most important reliances, generally refusing to abandon it even at the cost of her life. The fact that the Zerg had actually abandoned Marcus Hayden and fled in the face of him proved his immense power. But at this moment, the Queen transmitted a telepathic message from afar. "You are far inferior to that person." Marcus Hayden's smile froze. Marcus Hayden, was the core member of the Council's search team, a renowned figure throughout the vampire world. How could you be so far inferior to that person? Who is that person? What level of power was he? It seems that the Zerg have not only evolved fear, but also cunning lies. I must report this in detail to the speaker as soon as possible. Marcus Hayden made a firm judgment. Over the next 2 days, Thomas of the Temple discovered that the vampires had truly begun a rigorous research expedition, meticulously studying the evolution of the insects. Furthermore, their research covered an area thousands of miles around the valley, a level of expertise that even a biological expert like Thomas was impressed by. After Thomas began his research, he also discovered anomalies in the insect society's evolution. What caused these insects to feel threatened, slowing their expansive, low-level reproductive evolution and instead evolving into complex, high-tech military units? Immediately conduct a comprehensive investigation into the insect changes. The supervisory department must unconditionally cooperate with all relevant scientific research. Members of the supervisory department were dispatched to assist the Temple's scientific research team in conducting in-depth research on the insects on planet A16. One by one, lively insects were captured and anesthetized, dissected, and sliced, providing a crucial contribution to Thomas's development of a new insect data model. As he collected and compared data, Thomas's mood grew increasingly heavy. The insect's evolutionary rate was significantly accelerated beyond expectations. Select personnel to establish a permanent monitoring station on planet A16. I need to return to the Divine Giant Star immediately and report personally to the Great Elder. Thomas sent his assistant to select personnel to set up the monitoring station. A moment later, the assistant returned, looking somewhat embarrassed, saying, "Lord Thomas, the people from the supervisory department don't want to stay. Some of us don't either." "Why?" Thomas immediately became stern. "Because in recent days, several of our investigation teams have been missing. Over a dozen people have gone missing. Were they ambushed by the Zerg? Have any abnormalities in the Zerg's intelligence level been detected? Did they send back any information?" Upon hearing that the expedition team had disappeared, Thomas's first thought was to find out what had happened to them, not whether they were alive or dead. The assistant shook his head and said, "No. The search team has searched the area they were last seen at, but found nothing. It seems they disappeared suddenly. Could it be the work of the vampires?" Thomas frowned, thought for a moment, then asked, "Let's leave here first. The temple will send a larger scientific expedition later to investigate the truth." Thomas's assistant immediately conveyed the order and gathered the research team outside. He hadn't elaborated on some things with Thomas. The research team's results had been declining over the past few days, and the impact of the disappearance had already begun to ferment. Many people who had left were reluctant to approach the insect's range again. "Everyone, return to the starship. We will leave in a day. Teams that receive the message, please reply immediately." Team 8. "Did you receive the message?" Team 8, "Please reply immediately." Damn it, at the edge of a hive 1,000 meters underground, the entire research team lay on the ground, their bodies anesthetized, dissected, and sliced. However, the dissectors weren't insects or vampires, but rather several humanoids wearing black, form-fitting armor and massive helmets. Judging by the way they handled the knives and recorded the dissection data, they were clearly human. However, they weren't from the oversight department, the temple, or the vampires. The distinct hissing of insects fighting could be heard in the distance. Evidently these black-armored humanoids weren't just hunting down the temple research team, they were also engaging in combat with the insects themselves. After a moment, the sounds of fighting subsided. The humanoids in charge of biopsy entered the hive's core and dissected and sliced the queen, who had self-destructed and mentally died. Other humanoids, clearly butcher warriors, selectively cut up the remains of insects and humans, shaving them into strips. Then, removing their helmets, they stuffed the strips into their crab-like mouths. After a long moment, a powerful energy surge suddenly erupted in the hive's core hall, and a warp tunnel several meters in diameter appeared out of thin air. However, this jump channel is extremely unstable, with visible spatial turbulence raging wildly within it, as if to tear apart anything that enters it. These black-armored humanoids collected the research data, placed them in several sturdy metal containers, and then threw them into the black hole-like space channel. Lao Feng is ill and not in good condition. If you find any typos or grammatical errors, please let me know and I will correct them. Thanks. Greek letter Omega. Chapter 108 The Dazed Girl. Ding, ding, ding. A melodious bell echoed through the silent city, awakening the slumbering crowd. The morning light transformed into dazzling white light, and two dazzling stars swirled and stirred, rapidly rising into the heavens. The dazzling white light showered the earth, awakening all creatures that had slumbered all night. Flowers and plants swayed their stems and leaves joyfully, and people greeted each other joyfully. This was a world of excessive brightness, but the blazing light of the twin stars didn't feel scorching, but rather a warm and welcoming feeling. The bells rang for a long time before fading. By then, the city's residents had finished their toilets and were heading toward the distant city center. There stood a vast, towering, sprawling complex of buildings, many of them imbued with artistic flair. The tallest and largest stood hundreds of meters tall, its massive cross star atop seemingly reaching the clouds, a majestic presence soaring into the heavens. The continuous chimes emanated from a large bell in the highest tower. A crowd gathered and began chanting ancient ballads, resonating a mystical melody. The songs, imbued with mysterious power, moved countless citizens, involuntarily praising the light and feeling the divine blessing. But in an elegant building tucked into a corner of the towering complex, a girl sat motionless by a window, unaffected by the singing, simply gazing out at the crowd in a daze. Her hair flowed like a cascading waterfall, her face as dazzling as the stars in the sky, her eyes as deep as the night sky. Yet, her brow furrowed from time to time, as if in a state of melancholy or a subtle pain. Long after, the chanting crowd had long since dispersed, the twin stars had risen to mid-heaven, and the girl still sat quietly. In the distance, starships streaked across the sky, rising and falling. In the city, men donned armor and bid farewell to their families. Playful children darted out into the wilderness, chasing and playing with laughter. A clumsy apprentice's spell went haywire, shattering a neighbor's roof. But all these lively things seemed to rouse no interest in the girl. She stared out the window with confused eyes, blank and without focus. Only every once in a while, she would lower her eyebrows and glance at the windowsill in front of her. On the windowsill stood an encrypted communicator, as dead silent as a piece of waste brick. Beep, beep, beep. There was a knock on the door, and the quiet girl moved slightly. Master Chen Tong, the great elder asks you to come over. Got it. The girl stood up and put on a white, loose robe, hiding her slender and graceful body. She put on a white veil, covering her face that would make gods jealous. Only her straight and flowing long hair set off her ethereal beauty. The girl walked through the long corridors and entered the tall, spacious temple. Her bare feet, unshod, were untouched by the dust of the ground. A faint starlight enveloped her skin, as if isolating her from the world. Master Chen Tong, Master Chen Tong. Everyone who saw her bowed their heads in greeting, some even knelt on the ground, not daring to look at her. She responded to no one, as if the respect and fear they showed her were irrelevant to her. Even as she walked deeper into the temple, encountering many people in similar white robes, she ignored them. It was only when she saw a white-haired old man that a hint of emotion appeared in her deep, calm eyes. Great Elder, you asked for me, Chen Tong. You should call me teacher. The great elder looked at the girl kindly and asked with concern, how are you feeling today? Do you have a headache again? Chen Tong replied calmly, no, thank you, teacher. The power of the gods is a gift, but also a test. You are already the most favored child of the gods. Don't be too greedy or too impatient. Yes, thank you for your teachings, teacher. Chen Tong bowed slightly and then softly asked the great elder, teacher, you asked me here. Is there something? Indeed, there is something. Come with me. The great elder led Chen Tong outside, into a side hall outside the temple complex, where they met Palmas, who had just returned from planet A16. This is Palmas. He's in charge of investigating the evolution of the insects on planet A16. He's discovered something very puzzling, and needs to discuss some issues with you, the proposer. Chen Tong nodded slightly at Palmas, a gesture of courtesy. It was actually Li Zhe who suggested the study of insect evolution to Chen Tong, and Chen Tong then submitted a request for the study to the temple. Unexpectedly, the results came so quickly. Bo Missy bowed deeply to Chen Tong and said respectfully, Master Chen Tong, since arriving at planet A16, We have indeed noticed an acceleration in the evolution of the Zerg, but I've noticed something strange. The insects have fled far from the valley where you fought, Master. It's as if some terrifying entity has terrified them. I wonder if Master Chen Tong knows what that entity is. Of course I know what that entity is. Isn't it Meli Zhe? But who am I to tell you? Chen Tong raised an eyebrow slightly and said coldly, are our temple warriors unworthy of the insect's fear? Can't I instill fear in them? Bo Missy was deeply frustrated by Chen Tong's rebuke. He had long heard that the Great Elder's beloved student wasn't good at getting along with others, but seeing him today, he knew his reputation was well deserved. But Chen Tong's identity was someone Bomis absolutely could not afford to offend, so he hurriedly explained, it is like this, Lord Chen Tong, when we arrived at planet A16, we happened to meet the vampires. They were ostensibly studying the evolutionary anomalies of insects. But I saw that they seemed to have found a vampire-style mobile armor on the battlefield, and in the final stage of our research, several companions disappeared in succession. After analysis, we didn't think it was done by those vampires, so we suspect that the vampires went to planet A16 not only to analyze the evolution of insects, but also to find that mobile suit, and that person may be the reason for the disappearance of our companions. I asked Pilot Thor who had followed you to fight, and he said that you had come into contact with a man wearing a vampire mobile armor. Bama stated many reasons, hoping to get Chen Tong's forgiveness, but Chen Tong's next words made him sweat. I told you to investigate the bugs, not me. Does that mean anyone wearing a vampire mobile suit is necessarily a vampire? Or do you think I, Chen Tong, am a traitor colluding with the vampires? I'm sorry, Master Chen Tong, I truly didn't mean that. I didn't. Alright, leave, the Great Elder coldly rebuked Bomis. Go to the punishment hall and receive your punishment of burning your body. Thank you, Great Elder. Bomis knelt and performed a prostration, then walked out with his head bowed. After Bomis left, Chen Tong told the Great Elder, I did contact that person, but he's not a vampire, but a masked figure from the Supervisory Bureau. I've assigned him to investigate the details of the A16 ambush. I believe someone set a trap against our temple. It's undeniable that Chen Tong and Li Zhe were in sync. When asked about some hidden issues, they both gave the same explanation for shifting the blame. Oh? Any conspiracy against us? That must be thoroughly investigated, the Great Elder said with a cold, serious face. After leaving the temple, Pomus walked around the city for a while. In a small alley, he crossed paths with a stranger and handed him a piece of paper. The note contained only this short sentence, she is very emotional. Perhaps she was seriously injured, or perhaps she really has a special relationship with a pilot. I had a fever all night yesterday, and I feel weak all over today. I'm just being lazy. Sorry, brothers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Telepathy. Chen Tong, the temple's divine selection will be held in a few days. Are you really not planning on participating? After all, the opportunity only comes once every 5 years. Chen Tong looked at the hopeful Great Elder, thought for a moment, and then said, I'll see. Teacher, don't get your hopes too high. The Great Elder smiled heartily and said, as long as you can participate, I'm very pleased. As for the outcome, it's naturally the will of the gods. You don't need to worry too much. Chen Tong has always had a cold and aloof temperament. Among the contemporary geniuses of the temple, she has always been known for her non-competitiveness. The Great Elder has been troubled by her temper. After all, a strong person who doesn't know how to compete cannot reach the ultimate summit. On the way to the summit, one must step on the shoulders and feet of countless people to see the most beautiful scenery. A few days ago, the Great Elder asked Chen Tong, and Chen Tong had clearly stated that she would not participate in this year's divine selection. Now that she has suddenly softened her stance, the Great Elder is relieved. Teacher, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving now. Go. Make sure to get plenty of rest. Your strength and talent are unparalleled. You don't need to try too hard to command everyone's admiration. Chen Tong bid farewell to her teacher and quietly made her way through the courtyard and corridors back to her residence. Many people still saluted her along the way, but she simply walked slowly, her aloof and cold air, as if she were detached from the mundane world. But once she entered her elegant little building, Her pace suddenly quickened. Wrapped in a wide, white, divine robe, she was like a white cloud, floating lightly up to her rooftop boudoir in a few breaths. Once inside, the girl simply waved gently, closed the window, drew the curtains, and grabbed the encrypted communicator. He asked me to send someone to investigate the insect evolutionary anomaly. We've made some progress, so it's only right for me to have some academic discussions with him, right? Chen Tong pondered the reasons, and the more she thought about it, the more she felt she should contact Li Zihe immediately. Her fair fingers flew, rapidly typing lines of text into the communicator. Her language was concise, her word choice precise. It was truly a rigorous academic exchange, devoid of any hint of personal emotion. After checking it several times to ensure it was correct, Chen Tong clicked send, sending the long document to the distant Star City. Then she quietly waited, not anxious at all, having grown accustomed to this long wait. But this time, Chen Tong didn't have to wait long before Li Zihe's message arrived. I'm doing fine. I get along well with my colleagues. My work is easy and secure. I have the letter of introduction you sent me, and they're all very kind. Li Zihe's reply was devoid of any academic discussion, filled with bland, everyday chatter, like a man working away from home, exhausted and down and out, yet always insisting on I'm fine when calling home. The two of them, one sending an academic discussion, the other sending a family message, began a nonsensical but strangely harmonious conversation. After chatting for a while, Chen Tong suddenly said, by the way, they discovered your abandoned mobile armor while conducting research on planet A16, but I made a cover-up for you. Saying I sent you to the Federation to investigate the conspiracy behind the A16 ambush, Li Zihe was silent for a moment, then smiled and sent a few words. Just a few days ago, I used the excuse of investigating the inside story of the A16 ambush to start investigating the corresponding conspiracy. Is this what we call telepathy? Chen Tong was also stunned for a moment, pondering for a long time before she understood the meaning of telepathy. The corners of her mouth curled up unconsciously. It turns out that this special relationship of intimate knowledge is effective even across thousands of miles. After Chen Tong left the side hall, the elder watched his beloved disciple leave, his gentle smile gradually fading, and a serious and cold expression appeared on his face. Hideo, go and check the background of the mobile suit that appeared on planet A16, where he has gone now, and whether he's a kind-hearted person. A figure hidden in the dark corner nodded slightly, but he did not leave immediately. Instead, he said coldly, Teacher, recently someone has been spreading some rumors about Chen Tong inside the temple. What rumors? The face of the great elder suddenly became fierce, like a tiger protecting its cubs suddenly showing its power. Some say that after Chen Tong failed the A16 trial mission, fearing retribution from the Elder Council, she repeatedly requested to detour through the instant signal relay zone on her way back to the divine giant star. This was probably a message for help, sending me a message for help. Hey, the great elder sneered. Do you think Chen Tong would ask me for help after failing? Hideo replied coldly, no. Chen Tong has never asked anyone for help after failing since she was a child. Then what are you waiting for? Why don't you just go and execute all those people? Yes, I'm going, Master. The great elder understood that those spreading rumors must have someone backing them, otherwise, Hideo wouldn't have asked him before taking action. But no matter who it was, they shouldn't use such dirty tactics on Chen Tong. A girl as pure as a clear spring couldn't tolerate even the slightest taint. But she asked to go through the instant signal relay zone. Who is she contacting? The great elder was troubled. He truly treated Chen Tong like his own daughter. A father raising a beautiful daughter dreaded this sense of crisis. An hour later, the great elder estimated that Hideo had finished his business, so he walked out the door and headed towards the core area of the temple. In the very center of the temple complex, there was a vast roofed courtyard. This was the temple's elder's house, once famous throughout the starry sky. The great elder deliberately walked into the elder's house at this time, just to find trouble. I killed your people, so what? I'm here now, come and bite me if you dare. But the great elder walked around the elder's house, and found that none of the elders who had been idle here all day were there. Tisk, coward, the great elder didn't find any fault, so he walked into a small door and walked forward along the deep corridor inside the small door. The corridor was very long, winding around countless rooms, and finally arrived at a place where no one could estimate the exact location from the outside. Opened the door, recognizing the great elder, Several powerful guards opened a bronze metal door at the end of the corridor. The mottled marks on the door carried a deep aura of age. Once the door swung open, the Great Elder stepped through, entering a vast sea of books. Ancient tomes lined the surrounding shelves, seemingly endless. The Great Elder's followers passed through row after row of shelves, and the books grew increasingly older the further they went. Many were even protected by transparent passports, evidently showing their fragility. The Great Elder reached a shelf and picked up a historical biography. He flipped open the pages and found the section he was looking for, an article written in ancient Kali. When the Zerg overran, the demon god descended again. The hidden, despicable demons grew incredibly powerful. Light became humanity's last hope, and the entire starry sky was blessed by the gods. In the center of the page was an illustration depicting a ferocious warrior clad in black armor, a massive helmet, and a crab-like mouth. The Great Elder, a learned man, could decipher most of the meaning of this ancient Kali text, but at the moment, other thoughts were brewing in his mind. Should I kill the Zerg preemptively, or wait for further action, allowing the temple's glory to once again fill the starry sky? Lao Feng has had a fever for 2 days. His head is buzzing, and his whole body aches. He can neither sit nor stand. I'm taking a leave of absence to update. Sorry. Also, thanks to my fellow reader wandering between the past and the future for the tip. Chapter 110 Evening Update just came back from the hospital. 2 hours ago, Lao Feng packed up his belongings and went to the hospital very nervously. Lao Feng had hardly gone out in the past 2 months, and he felt that he would definitely not win the lottery, but he had a high fever for 3 days and didn't know what to say. After arriving at the hospital, as soon as I had a high fever for 3 days, I had to go through a combination of blood tests, nucleic acid tests, and CT scans. Fortunately, the doctor confirmed that it was pneumonia. Lao Feng was also very puzzled. How could I have pneumonia if I didn't cough or spit? Then the doctor's words made Lao Feng blush. Your condition may also be aspiration pneumonia. What is aspiration pneumonia? It's caused by lying in bed for too long without exercise. But now that the problem has been found, treatment will be easy. Lao Feng will go to write later and update tonight, and try to resume normal updates tomorrow. Chapter 111 Impossible. In the Twilight Continent, Blood Twilight City, in a secluded building within the Red Castle family, Mu Yu was sorting through a large wardrobe. Inside, she packed Li Zhe with clothes, shoes, watches, and other accessories. Mu Yu had been doing this since their time in Red Rock City. Every item Li Zhe used was carefully selected by her. However, when Li Zhe boarded the Red Rock City, he only brought a small, unassuming carry-on bag. All his belongings had been carefully transported by Mu Yu. Mu Yu expressionlessly sorted through the hundreds of square meters of closet, ensuring every piece was wrinkle-free, before sighing softly. Her father was handsome, perfectly fitting the image of a noble vampire, yet he cared little for his appearance. He wouldn't change his shirt collar even when it was dirty, and he'd casually throw on clothes worth just a few dozen yuan. Although Li Zhe's casual demeanor gave Mu Yu a unique sense of familiarity, she stubbornly assumed the role of Li Zhe's image designer. But now, looking at these clothes hanging there alone, the figure that made her feel so at ease at the first sight was nowhere to be found, and Mu Yu felt a sense of emptiness and uncertainty in her heart. Ethan walked in quietly, staring at Mu Yu for a moment before speaking. Sister, Vice Speaker Melton is here, and he brought Wheeler's son with him. Wheeler's son? Mu Yu was a little confused, as she didn't remember who Wheeler was. Wheeler is the chief engine mechanic on the Red Rock City. Mu Yu turned her head suddenly, her eyes shining, and she disappeared in a flash. However, by the time she arrived at the Red Castle family's reception room, the impatient Mu Yu had adjusted her mood and returned to her usual cold and indifferent demeanor. Hello, Lord Melton, we meet again. Yes. After our hasty farewell last time, I have been waiting for Lord Mu Yu to visit, but I didn't expect that it would be me who visited. Mu Yu smiled faintly, then looked at the timid and trembling little boy behind Melton and said, I have sent many people to look for the Red Rock City these days, but there is no news. I didn't expect that it was the speaker who found their whereabouts. The Parliament still has some power, but we have not yet completely determined the whereabouts of the survivors of the Red Rock City. Instead, we found some interesting things. What did you say? Survivors, Ethan asked in surprise, because since there are survivors, there must be victims. Mu Yu glanced at Ethan sharply, then asked calmly, the Red Rock City did indeed encounter an accident, Right, Deputy Speaker Melton said, we found the wreckage of the Red Rock City and the bodies of the victims on A16. We also found the wreckage of the Bomb Temple Mu Guang-class battleship on the surface of the planet, as well as traces of survivors being captured and taken away. We immediately mobilized the Federation's lurkers to collect information on the whereabouts of the survivors, but the whereabouts of the survivors have not been found yet. But we found this child named Jesse. Melton pulled the child who was huddled behind him in front of him and said to him gently, Jesse, tell me everything you know, and you will get the forgiveness you deserve. Facing the cold and frosty Mu, the little boy Jesse's small body trembled and he almost couldn't stand. It was not until Melton put his broad palm on his shoulder that he had the confidence to start narrating. That night, the masked man suddenly broke into our home, captured my father and me, and threatened my father with my life to change the engine jump parameters of the Red Rock City. Later, the masked man took me away and handed me over to the Federal Military Intelligence Department. Then I learned that they were from the Federation. Later, I went to Star City and met a senior from the Vampire Clan. He took me to the Twilight Continent. Jesse paused, and finally added, when the masked man carried me out of Red Rock City, I smelled the special smell of engine oil on him. He should be a mecha maintenance technician. Mu's expression didn't change at all, but Ethan's face looked a little bad. Jesse's last sentence sounded very meaningful. Deputy Speaker Melton went on to say, Your Excellency Mu, when I went to Red Rock City, I heard from many people that there was a mechanic with a special identity in the Red Castle Manor. I wonder if he is here. Maybe Jesse can identify him. Before Melton could finish his words, Mu asked back with a murderous look, A lot of people? Who are they? Deputy Speaker Melton smiled and said indifferently, This is just my personal suggestion. After all, we are not sure whether the masked man is a mechanic. In addition, the Parliament's special envoy will set off for Star City in a few days to question the Federation about the attack on the Red Castle family. As a new member of the Scarlet Parliament, Your Excellency Mu's affairs are the Parliament's affairs. Mu raised his eyebrows and said, I want to follow the delegation to Star City. That, I'm afraid, is not possible. Melton explained, we and the Federation have always been in a subtle state of hostility. There is no official formal diplomatic channel. The specifications of this delegation were temporarily negotiated with the Federation. According to the previous unspoken rules, the members of the delegations traveling between the two sides cannot be higher than marquises and SS-level superpowers. Mu said, Of course I know the unspoken rules. I'm just a marquis, not a duke, so I'm not breaking the rules. Deputy Speaker Melton smiled and said, The result of your battle with Duke Hazen has spread to the Federation, so Marcus Mu's rank must be above the standard. There are many people watching you, Lord Mu. The Parliament's Intelligence Department has captured dozens of spies in recent days, and 80% of them are targeting you. You must also be vigilant and not take it lightly, let alone take the risk of sneaking into the Federation. Don't worry, the Parliament's delegation will seek justice for Lord Mu. Deputy Speaker Melton stood up, nodded to Mu, turned and walked out of the reception room, but when he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and turned back. Oh, by the way, the Council's direct search team found a damaged mobile suit on the surface of planet A16, numbered 996,715. Based on on-site analysis, the suit's owner had fought arduous and heroic battles. Thank you, Speaker Melton. I'll check the family's mobile suit numbers. Mu thanked Melton indifferently. Only after Vice Speaker Melton had left did Mu's heart skip a beat. She didn't need to check, as everything related to Lineage was imprinted in her mind. After Vice Speaker Melton left, the little boy Jesse, who was left behind, felt increasingly uneasy. Just now, he had tried to follow Melton, but had been sternly stopped. Now, Mu and Ethan looked at him with unwavering murderous intent. No harm to the family, no guilt for women and children, that didn't exist. In vampire society, that didn't exist. Ethan grabbed Jesse's neck. Jesse stumbled, I really didn't know. My father did it. My mother was summoned by your personal butler, Lord Ethan, and became the main course at the blood feast. I'm loyal to the family. Crack. Ethan's face turned blue. He only hated himself for being too slow, letting Jesse spout so much nonsense. Back then, because of the butler's death, he had already suffered a joint attack from Mu and Lineage. Even though he was dead, his ghost was still lingering. But Mu didn't care this time, but asked his brother softly, Do you think it will be Lineage? Ethan was stunned for a moment, stiffened his neck and said angrily, "Absolutely impossible. First of all, thank the book friend Mo Sang Jeje for the reward. In addition, Lao Feng still has a fever, and the coding state is simply terrible, but the subsequent plot has been outlined in detail long ago, and it should be better tomorrow and the day after tomorrow." Lao Feng has been worried about the results every day for so many days. After all, this book was rejected in the trial push. It is every vote, every click, and every comment given by the brothers that gave Lao Feng the motivation. Lao Feng thanks everyone. Thank you. Chapter 112 The Prodigal Son. Ethan, go out quietly at night and find a woman to pretend to be me. When I am not at home, you block those who try to come to the door and spy on me. I will have someone help you secretly. Muayu, what are you going to do? Ethan asked his sister sternly in desperation. Are you going to sneak to the Federation's home planet? Do you know how dangerous it is? Do you think you are those lowly smugglers? You are a Marcus, a congressman. How can the Federation let you enter like letting an ant go? Then what good ideas do you have? Muayu was also angry. Then what good ideas do you have? Can you find those survivors? Ethan was also very angry, and stared at Muayu face to face. He knew very well in his heart that the survivor that Muayu cared about was actually only that one person. Oh, I know you don't trust Melton. I'll sneak him into the Federation, and as long as he's still alive, I'll bring him back to you. Do you think you'll be invisible? If you're targeted, will you kill everyone? Do you think I'll have to save you then? Ethan, exasperated by Muayu's scolding, shouted at the top of his lungs, I'd rather die than be captured. Okay, Muayu looked at the stubborn Ethan, feeling helpless. The implication of Melton's words had still irritated Ethan. Ordinary vampire slaves might be captured, but true vampires would rather die than surrender in battle. And Li Zhe was Lord Muayu's temporary companion. Ethan had long since accepted him as a true vampire, and common sense would never allow him to surrender. So, if Li Zhe wouldn't surrender, where had he gone? The scars all over the mobile suit number 996,715 gave both the men a bad feeling, and a surge of anxiety they couldn't suppress. But a powerful consciousness suddenly swept through Blooddusk City, resonating within Muyu's mind. Come to me. Muyu was shocked. She clearly sensed this consciousness emanating from the deepest reaches of Blooddusk City, from the lofty being for whom she had always sought justice, but for whom it had always been denied. In a typical city, the closer to the center, the more prosperous and bustling the area, but Blooddusk City was the exact opposite. Muyu journeyed from the Red Castle family's territory toward the city center. The deeper she went, the older and quieter the castles and manors on either side became, as if abandoned by their owners. But a closer look revealed that these mansions had been meticulously maintained, their rich historical atmosphere discreetly concealed. As for this profound silence, it was due to the numerous underground blood pools in the city center, where even more vampire elders slumbered. To ensure the elders' long sleep, young people seeking more excitement should venture out to the city's outskirts. When Muyu reached the very center of Blooddusk City, an utterly dilapidated castle appeared before her. Cracked walls, collapsed pillars, and gaping windows, the castle was truly dilapidated. Yet, across the Twilight Continent, no one dared to question the splendor of this Blooddusk castle. According to family records, after the Blood Clan's first refuge was unsealed, the first refugees to awaken, drawing on their memories, discovered this sole surviving family relic from the previous civilization. The entire Blooddusk City was then rebuilt around this ruined castle. This dilapidated castle, standing for tens of thousands of years, has become a symbol of pride for the Blooddusk people. All Blooddusk people believed that, as long as they were strong enough, this dilapidated castle would need no repairs and could be passed down for tens of thousands of years. Muyu pushed open the half-open castle gate and entered the great hall. She knelt on one knee, listening to the instructions coming from hundreds of meters below. In the past, only the dozen or so most powerful vampires in the family were qualified to attend training here. But today, after Muayu arrived, the person in the underground blood pool hadn't spoken for a long time. After a long silence, Muayu heard a slightly angry voice. Did you see him? Muayu's heart trembled. The tone of the voice was different from the legend. But Muayu immediately understood who he was. From what the person in the blood pool said, he knew father and father seemed to be of high status, but their relationship seemed to be uneasy. Huh? A sharp question came from the blood pool hundreds of meters below. Muayu nodded quickly, indicating that she had met Li Zhe. Did he take the pair of dark fragrance short blades? Muai was stunned for a moment, then nodded again. She had always believed that the pair of knives were gifts for her, but it seemed that father liked them more, but now it seemed that this person had arranged it. He gave you the blood embrace? This time, Muai didn't know whether to nod or shake her head. Was it Li Zihe who gave me the blood embrace? That's definitely not the case. I bid him. But if I say directly that I bid him, with the behavior of the legendary person in the blood pool below, will he jump out and tear me apart immediately? Rebellion is a crime of treason, and the rules of the wealthy family are not a joke. Otherwise, in such a big family, you plunder me and I plunder you, and then you close the door and play house. How many bachelors will be left in the end? Haven't those old guys in the blood pool become nutrients in the eyes of the younger generation, and have been exploited and eaten dry? However, this time, Mu did not answer, but did not receive a severe reprimand. Instead, she heard more incredible words. Huh? Did he say some incomprehensible words to you? Mu thought about it. Li Zihe really said a lot of things that she didn't understand, so she nodded. Why do you think he didn't come back with you? Mu was stunned. From what she knew, this being was perceptive of every action in Blooddusk City. He must have heard everything she had just said to Melton, so why would he still ask? Father, for some reason, refused to board the southern forest and was ambushed. I don't know where father is now, so I want to secretly search for him in the Federation. If he could be found by you, he wouldn't have planned this attack. Mu's head buzzed, and she was stunned. What did the being in the blood pool mean? Was this attack orchestrated by Li Zihe? That masked man, that mechanic, was it really Li Zihe? He was so kind, so opposed to the bloodlust of the vampires. How could he collude with the Federation to attack and kill his own people? Everyone in the Red Castle family was his people. It couldn't be Li Zihe. Mu no longer cared about the rules of the ancient castle and loudly defended Li Zihe. That's impossible. He's not that kind of person. The terrifying being beneath the ground also erupted in fury. A surge of energy surged up from hundreds of meters below, knocking Mu to the ground and causing her to spit blood. He's a playboy. He's a playboy who disregards his family, refuses to obey his command, and betrays his own people. Mu's body suddenly felt a piercing pain, as invisible shackles pinned her to the ground, preventing her from moving. The being in the underground pool of blood was clearly trying to end this brief, somewhat ridiculous argument in her own way. But the next moment, a pure force naturally emerged from Mu's bloodline, helping her break free from the invisible shackles that bound her. He's not. A moment later, the shackles binding Mu were released, and the intense pain gradually subsided. But the resentful voice rose again. He really dotes on you. I changed the medicine in Lao Feng's IV drip today and added another bottle. It was already afternoon when I got back from the treatment. I cleaned up, had some food, and started writing. I've only written this much so far, so I'm really sorry. I'm sorry to all my fellow readers. 2 updates tomorrow, 2 updates tomorrow. I'll take a day off, I'm sorry. Chapter 113 Core Counselors. When Mu emerged from the main hall of Blooddusk Castle, she saw a crowd of vampires forming a circle several hundred meters away, watching from afar as she, the unfilial daughter who had dared to offend the old patriarch, stood before him. Of course, they weren't watching like a giant panda, but rather like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. For all those years, no one had dared to anger the old patriarch. Not only was he incredibly powerful, but he also had a fiery temper, prone to tearing people apart at the slightest provocation. He was the first refugee to emerge from the sanctuary, the one who founded the Blooddusk clan and held a godlike status within the vast Blooddusk community. So, when the fury within Blooddusk Castle erupted, the entire city was stunned. When had something like this last happened? It had never happened before. The old patriarch had already made clear arrangements before anything like this happened. So now, as Muayu slowly approached and everyone noticed the blood at the corner of her mouth, they all confirmed one fact: it was Muayu, the newly appointed Marcus, who had just challenged the old patriarch. As for why she challenged the old patriarch's authority, wasn't it because of the deaths of the Larsons decades ago? Back then, Muayu had knelt outside Bloodmoo Castle, begging the old patriarch for help, but in the end, she wasn't even allowed in. Now, feeling her arms and claws sharper, she wanted to challenge the old Tyrannosaurus Rex? Even after everyone's shock, they couldn't help but feel, only a mighty river can express my admiration. To have the audacity to challenge the old patriarch to his face, To have provoked such a fury, and to have emerged from the castle alive and well, Mr. Muayu, you're truly remarkable. There are dozens of dukes living and sleeping in the family, each with their own abilities, but when it comes to something as suicidal as you, they all have to call themselves your younger brothers. In the entire Bloodmu family, you're the only one who's a scorpion. Duke Barin, the daily liaison for the larger clans, noticed Muayu's grim expression and his indifference, so he asked, Muayu, what was going on just now? Were you arguing with the old patriarch? Muayu neither admitted nor denied, but replied coldly, prepare the starship for me. I'm going to the Red Council to claim my seat. Duke Born sensed a deep sense of discontent in Muayu's voice. You weren't beaten to death by the patriarch, so what's there to be upset about? However, Born fully supported Muayu's sudden initiative to claim her seat on the Red Council. He had urged her several times before, but she had always refused. After the Blood Clan rebuilt the Red Council in the Second Civilization, the changes, additions, and subtractions of each member affected the balance of power within Blood Clan society, impacting the vital interests of the major clans. Following the destruction of the previous civilization, 6 of the 13 ancient clans had been squeezed out of the ranks of the powerful. The remaining powerful families, Blood Dusk, Monroe, Night Phantom, Golden Rose, Clark, Lent, and Fickley, control the majority of seats in the council, while the remaining second and third tier families carve up the meager remaining seats. There's a significant difference between council members. If a council member from the Blooddusk family were treated the same as a member of an obscure, smaller clan, would all these 1,000-year-old veterans have lived in vain? Council members from the powerful families are called single-vote council members, meaning each has one vote. Another type is called joint vote council members, where 3 or 4, or even 4 or 5, members represent several clans and share one vote. When it comes time to vote, the smaller clans must negotiate and compromise to get that vote cast. If compromise isn't possible, fine. Abstain. Muyu, on the other hand, serves as a proposing council member, empowered to propose ideas within the council for discussion and voting. These are the most valuable seats on the Red Council, seats every powerful family vie for. Otherwise, why would Borin be so anxious to have Muyu take his seat? Muyu's appearance has already shaken up the parliamentary structure that has been balanced for centuries. I'll immediately arrange for a starship and escort fleet. When will you depart, Muyu? Duke Born asked. Now, watching Muyu's silent retreat, everyone speculated. Some gloated, while others were filled with anxiety. Everyone understood the mess that happened decades ago. Someone bullied a lonely sister and a widowed brother. They thought the Red Castle family had fallen, but Muyu had returned with such force so recently. Even if she were to seek justice from the old patriarch and be beaten to pulp, returning home in defeat, she was still a core member of the Red Council. Who would be the one to rule the family from now on? Who would be the one to suffer the consequences? Is there any need to say? But what no one expected was that they were all wrong. Muyu did not go to the old patriarch today to discuss her parents' affairs, nor did she go to the Blood Council to take office because of her parents' hatred. She believed in Lineage, but her years of belief made it difficult for her to doubt the old patriarch. Just now, she was fearlessly arguing with the old patriarch to the point of vomiting blood in order to protect her father. Now that she really walked out of it, she was also wondering if father had his own plans. Since you still haven't found your whereabouts, I will go and take care of what you need first. Li Zihe once expressed that he really wanted to see all the detailed information about the vampire refuge, and this information was only available in one place in the entire vampire society. Twilight Continent, Blood Council, Twilight Library. Starships took off and landed, and an entire space fleet set sail from the spaceport near Blood Twilight City, heading towards another spaceport that was only a few dozen minutes away. The Crimson Council and Blood Dusk City both reside on the Twilight Continent, albeit on the far side of this massive planet. While the southern forest would normally be sufficient for Muyu and his entourage, the inauguration of the new core counselors of the Blood Dusk clan demands a grand ceremony. Upon arrival at the Crimson Council's headquarters, a series of dinners and cocktail receptions are planned to showcase them to the other wealthy families. Shortly after Muyu's fleet set sail, a starship from the lower star regions arrived at the spaceport. After countless miles of travel, Viscount Sfidger finally saw the Twilight Continent, a continent he and his grandfather had longed for. When Sfidger passed a series of tests and was allowed to land on the continent's surface via shuttle, he was truly moved to tears. "Grandpa, I did it. Our Scavenger family is back. The next chapter might be quite late, so feel free to save it for tomorrow morning. Everyone, go to bed early, get some exercise, and stay healthy. Chapter 114. She is not wearing a skirt. Go, 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 everyone, get out. Our section chief said that our third supervision section is a sensitive area and outsiders are not allowed to enter. Hey, Xiaowan, who do you call outsiders? When you came to visit our section, you were so friendly that you didn't even consider yourself an outsider. Now you are acting so arrogantly. The charming secretary Xiaowan bent down her calves, put one hand on her waist, and stood domineeringly at the door of the section. She raised her chin slightly and said, "It's not that I don't care about our past friendship. There are too many people visiting our section now. In a few days, when there are fewer people, I will go to your house to apologize to you." Although Xiaowan apologized, there was a creeping resentment in her heart that was growing wildly. Her two small eyes glanced at the group of old sisters slyly, and she kept confirming and scoring them in her heart. A slut with penetrating eyes, eyebrows and beard, a slut with fine forehead hair and a waist and hips, what a shame. How could such a perfect person like me associate with people like them before? Doesn't this lower my standards? No wonder I don't have a boyfriend now. It turns out it's all the fault of you defective products. After pushing everyone away, Xiaowan ran back to Lineage's office and reported diligently, "Section Chief, I have driven away another group. Look at Sister Yao. Please talk to her." Lineage drank a sip of tea slowly and said indifferently, "Preachers are such talents. They are not something that ordinary people can control at will. Although I am his superior, I can't go against the unspoken rules of the department, right? Don't you have a good relationship with Yao? Why don't you just ask her to give you a private lesson?" Xiaowan pouted. It was good to have a good relationship with Yao, but Yao's mouth was much harder to pry open than Lineage's. He could talk nonsense for a long time but couldn't get a serious word out of her. "Senior section chief, look at me, I'm already in my 20s. I still don't have a boyfriend. Without a superpower identity in the supervisory department, I have to find someone who's left over." "Stop," Lineage quickly interrupted Xiaowan's pity-mongering. "This little secretary is much more powerful than Lamu Yangzi. She can be soft or hard, can be roundabout, and has excellent verbal skills. If you let her stay close to you for more than a few minutes, she will definitely be itching to death and want to kill her as soon as possible. This is the truth. You chose the wrong person. If you want to persuade someone, go and persuade Xiu. He is the one who is tough on the outside but soft on the inside. Whether you can succeed depends on your ability." The little secretary blinked her eyes and walked out doubtfully. Lineage suddenly called her from behind. "Have you finished your business today, huh?" Xiaowan was stunned, then immediately said, "I found out. An important figure is coming to the supervision department today. He seems to be from the military. The welcoming ceremony outside is of a very high level. Are they here for the protesters? I didn't find out. My level isn't high enough." "Chief, if I had the identity of an awakened superpower," the secretary grabbed a small stick and tried to climb up. "What if he managed to climb up? He wouldn't die if he broke." "Get out of here." Lineage stood up and walked to the window. He looked at the red carpet spread out below, frowning, wondering what he was thinking. In the afternoon, the guests who came to visit the supervision department finally arrived at the main gate. Lineage saw from upstairs that the person in charge of welcoming them at the door was actually a deputy minister of the supervision department. The solemnity in his heart deepened. A visit to the supervisory department at this time must be about the recent protests. After all, tens of thousands of protesters are still languishing in the supervisory department's jails. So, the higher the rank of the person coming, the more trouble he, the instigator, will be in. The reason Lineage considered it trouble rather than danger was because he was planning to flee if things got bad. "Huh?" Lineage looked down at the end of the red carpet. Instead of a friendly handshake, a strange awkwardness prevailed. The official car was parked at the end of the red carpet, but no one had gotten out for most of the day. In the Federation, this usually happens when the visitor complains about the lack of rank of the person receiving them. But now the person coming from the supervisory department is a deputy minister. Did Minister Xiaowan even have to personally greet them? After a long standoff, the official car's door finally opened, and the men in black suits waiting nearby quickly opened a large number of black umbrellas, blocking out the view of the sky. Li Zihe couldn't see the person emerging from beneath the umbrellas. He could only judge from their speed that they were moving quickly and were extremely angry. Li Zihe sat back in his boss chair, picked up the tea and sipped it slowly. What was coming could not be avoided, no matter. But he did not expect it to come so soon. A few minutes later, the noise level on the 10th floor of the supervision department suddenly dropped 2 levels. This abnormal phenomenon immediately aroused Li Zihe's vigilance. Then came the tapping sound of high heels. The frequency was very fast and the voice was exasperated. Li Zihe pursed his lips, smiled, and simply left the office area of the 3rd supervision section, walked to the door of the corridor and stuck his head out. The entire corridor on the 10th floor was very long, and there were at least 100 people like Li Zihe sticking their heads out. A group of people came from the elevator with a menacing look. There was the deputy minister of the supervision department, Xiaowan, several big bosses on the 10th floor, and of course the guests. In such a special occasion, a person's status can be distinguished by his position in the crowd. Everyone's eyes shifted from Xiaowan to the most conspicuous person in the crowd. It was a woman in a black dress. She was very beautiful. But in an instant, everyone who saw her felt a shudder in their hearts, a chill running down their backs, a sense of immense pressure and discomfort. On Langsing, a woman's skirt carries connotations of fragility, allure, sexiness, coquettishness, and timidity. The aesthetics of the Star Federation are similar to Langsing's. Yao Iao's blue dress, for example, is very sexy and feminine. But this woman, despite wearing a long skirt, exuded no sense of fragility, only a cold, murderous aura. It was as if she wasn't wearing a beautiful dress, but a stern battle robe. Li Zihe wasn't much of a fashion savvy, but he felt a special connection with her and her dress. A masterful design. The dress and the woman blended seamlessly, exuding a commanding presence. Untouchable, incredibly expensive. The crisp, click, click sound of high heels echoed through the silent corridor, each one striking a chord with the crowd, leaving the inspectors feeling deeply oppressed. This was a situation where the guest was taking over the show. The woman walked briskly, a clacking sound as she covered most of the corridor. Everyone was already beginning to understand her final destination. That troublemaker new section chief, you've run into trouble this time, haven't you, Wanama? Li Zihe's perception was sharp. When the woman in the black dress casually glanced at him from the other end of the corridor, he was sure she was looking at him. He didn't think it was a look of favor from a beautiful woman. From the cold murderous intent in it, he could tell that trouble was brewing. He wanted to pull out his communicator and call Xiaowan to demand, "You told me to come back and wait, right? You told me to wait for someone to arrest me, da 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 da." The woman in the black dress paused as she approached Charles, then continued walking. Li Zihe could clearly sense a subtle change in the rhythm of her steps. The sound of high heels stopped beside Li Zihe, and the crowd around him suddenly dispersed. Li Zihe looked at the woman calmly, waiting for the storm to come, ready to be a brave seagull. But he noticed that there was a hint of surprise and an imperceptible joy in her eyes when she looked at him. Li Zihe asked calmly, "Hello, Mom, what can I do for you?" The woman said nothing, but stared at Li Zihe with her sharp almond-shaped eyes without blinking. Her expression changed from indifference to suspicion, and finally to caution. Li Zihe keenly felt the other person's gaze sliding across his face, as if using the fingers of her mind to carefully touch his face inch by inch. This woman is a very strong person. Li Zihe began to feel uneasy for no reason. Not only was the other person's mind too strong, but her eyes were also too strange. He knew he was very handsome, but with the level and taste of the woman in front of him, she shouldn't be attracted by just being handsome, right? Lao Feng is not in good condition, so there are typos and grammatical errors. Please forgive me. I will revise it later. Chapter 115. You transfer him over as a secret agent. Hello, Mom, what can I do for you? Li Zihe's words, neither humble nor arrogant, plunged the 10th floor corridor of the supervisory department into deathly silence. Inspectors from the adjacent departments craned their necks like geese, hoping to get a better look at the two figures in the center of the scene. Li Zihe was extremely close to the woman, and his own heightened perception allowed him to faintly detect any peculiarities in her eyes. But to others, watching from afar, the scene was entirely different. The powerful aura of the woman in the long dress had completely taken control of the situation, leaving the arrogant section chief Li Zihe speechless. After a long moment, The woman's telekinetic finger vanished from Li Ziyi's face, and she calmly asked, "Is your last name Li? Which family, which branch? Who are your ancestors? You're asking that? I'm from a flower-growing family. My ancestor was named Li Xiaowan. Do you know him?" However, Li Ziyi had no intention of confronting him directly. He replied calmly, "My home is far away, and you wouldn't know even if I told you. My father is a nobody, so you'd know even less, huh?" Hiding nearby, Deputy Minister of Supervision, Xiaowan, felt his cheeks twitch. He wiped the sweat off Li Ziyi's face with his hands, and his nervous feet scraped against the corridor floor, making a slight sizzling sound. If a conflict broke out between the two, he would immediately rush over to break it up, as he was the only one present who had the qualifications and ability to do so. But the conflict Xiaowan had anticipated didn't occur. The woman, who had chilled him all along the way, suddenly smiled. "You don't know me, no," Li Ziyi answered confidently. "My name is Li Xiaowan. Now you know who I am, right?" Li Ziyi frowned slightly, thought for a long time, and then said, "I'm so sorry, I really don't know." No one spoke in the corridor, but the sound of panting was loud. Li Ziyi had a clear sense that this change had occurred after everyone heard the name Li Xiaowan. Li Xiaowan was someone important? Since arriving in Qingxing City, Li Ziyi's mind has been preoccupied with the two masked men. His knowledge of the Federation's prominent figures has been limited to a few, and he genuinely has no idea who Li Xiaowan is. The woman in the black dress, Li Xiaowan, possessed such a powerful aura that Lon was speechless, and now, he couldn't help but look embarrassed. Li Ziyi said sincerely, "I've actually been traveling a lot, and I've only been in the Federation for less than a month, so I can only name a few people in the Federation. I'm truly sorry." "Oh? Who are those you can name?" Li Ziyi could hear the woman's irritation, but he didn't care. He listed them one by one: Lu Chenfen, Qin Ziyan, Crown Chester. He rattled off over a dozen names in a row, and the cheeks of his colleagues in the supervision department twitched. The names Li Ziyi mentioned were all legendary and epic figures in the Federation, each one an SSS rank expert, not even a single SS. Everyone had always assumed the idiotic chief of the 3rd Supervision Section was arrogant, but they hadn't expected him to be so arrogant. "You're just a junior inspector general, a C-rank superpower at best, yet you only have eyes for the SSS superpowers, looking down on even the SS? Where are those eyes? On your forehead? No, he doesn't have eyes. Sooner or later, you'll be courting disaster." Li Xiaowan twitched her lips, as if about to ask something, but ultimately left it alone. Very good indeed, ta-da ta-da." The crisp sound of high heels echoed through the corridor, and a chill enveloped Li Xiaowan just walked away. Li Ziyi sensed the awkward atmosphere around them and smiled, asking the others, "What's wrong? Is there a problem with what I just said?" Whoosh, 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 figures vanished, the entire corridor vanishing in an instant. Li Ziyi turned to look behind him at Xiaowan, only to see her Yoko-branded eyes blink, her short legs suddenly giving way, and she scurried off. She couldn't hold it in any longer. How could she handle this much gossip alone? She needed someone to chat with for hours to get her fill. The 36th floor of the supervisory department was still so quiet until the sound of high heels broke it. Li Xiaowan walked into Xiaowan's office with a cold face and slammed the door shut. "Xiaowan, why don't you come downstairs to pick me up? What's the matter? Are you higher in rank than me, or higher in level than me?" Xiaowan drank tea silently and put down the teacup slowly. "I'm better at fighting than you. If you don't believe me, you can try it." Li Xiaowan's breath stagnated, and her soaring momentum actually stopped. Xiaowan added, "You're not wearing a uniform, so how do I know who you are?" Li Xiaowan sneered, "You expect me to come in uniform? Do you want to drag the military into this?" Xiaowan smiled, "Then why should I go out to greet a little girl like you? Don't I, the Minister of Supervision, have any dignity? But every time I came back from the battlefield, you and Maya would go to greet me in person." Li Xiaowan's nose twitched, and the oppressive atmosphere in the room dissipated. Xiaowan, who had always been as steady as a rock, froze, and said with a wry smile, "You were a child then. Master's not home, so come over to my house tonight and I'll let Maya cook for you." One's destiny is not decided by the world, and the same is true for those in the rich and powerful. Li Xiaowan and Xiaowan are old acquaintances, and they've had a good relationship since childhood, but now they are in different power structures, and an incident involving protesters has put their relationship in jeopardy. Sit down. How about trying my tea? Xiaowan invited Li Kaiao to sit on the sofa and poured her some tea, lightening the mood. You went to the 10th floor earlier. What do you think of that guy? Not bad, I want him. Xiaowan's hand, still holding the teapot, froze in midair. Didn't I tell you he's from the temple? Li Kaiao took a sip of tea and said, I checked. He was hired with a personal letter from the temple, not an official letter of assignment. You transferred him to the first group as a secret agent for the supervisory department. Is that difficult? You want me to send you a clear secret agent? How holy? Xiaowan also laughed. The supervisory department had secret agents all over the Federation, and the first group army was no exception, with quite a few. But if Li Zhe went there, was he still a secret agent? He was just a core member of the supervisory department who defected to you, Li Kaiao, okay? Li Kaiao said calmly, we'll talk about this later. Let's get down to business first. I still hold the same opinion from the other day. We can conduct a joint investigation into the matter involving Li Boyuan. After we've investigated thoroughly. Either you give me an explanation, or I'll give you an explanation. Okay, we'll set up a joint investigation team as soon as possible, Li Kaiao added, but the head of the investigation team from the supervisory department must be that Li Zhe. Xiaowan laughed again. Xiaowei, don't think you're so charming. Your beauty may not work on that young man. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Post Station, Why Are You Still Resisting? After Li Kaiao left, Li Zhe returned to his office and opened the supervisory department's database, searching for Li Kaiao's personal information. He searched through everyone named Li Kaiao, but the intimidating woman in the black dress wasn't in the database. She's not in the supervisory department's database. Li Zhe was genuinely surprised. But when it came to intelligence power, the supervisory department was supreme. He knew every wealthy family head, every powerful figure, even those SSS rank figures he could name, and they had detailed profiles. But there was no information on Li Kaiao. The name couldn't be fake. The loud gasps in the hallway couldn't have deceived anyone. Pulling out his communicator, Li Zhe called Qin Kai, whom he hadn't spoken to in a few days. Hey, I need to ask you about someone. Does Li Kaiao know you? Yes, but asking her about her is a bit troublesome. If you dare ask me for tea again, I'll come up and beat you up. Qin Kai paused and said, I didn't mention the tea. But Li Kaiao is a very special person. If I tell you too much, she'll definitely dare to come and beat me up. Li Zhe thought for a moment and said, come down for tea and tell me briefly. Qin Kai said, no, let's go to that cafe. See you in 2 hours. Li Zhe understood that Qin Kai was truly afraid of Li Kaiao, or rather, that Li Kaiao's reputation in the Federation was truly brutal. How could I have missed such a person? How careless. In the secluded cafe, Li Zhe and Qin Kai met and immediately took out 2 cans of Imperial Tribute-grade Jinjin Mei, which he had bought online, and slammed them on the table. It's a new variety. You haven't tried it yet, so just tell me the price. Of course, I don't mind if you tell me more. Qin Kai was stunned for a moment, then after a long struggle, she pushed 1 can back to Li Zhe, keeping only 1 for herself. Exchange, let's exchange. If you're willing to give it and I'm willing to exchange, then we can exchange. No force, Li Zhe said sternly. I checked the Ministry of Supervision's database, and there's no information on Li Kaiao. But why do everyone seem to know her name? You're looking in the wrong place, Qin Kai said with a smile. You should check the military's public information platform. There's plenty of information about her there. You can even occasionally come across her name in political tabloids. As for why the Ministry of Supervision doesn't have any, it's because Minister Qiao knows her well and was embarrassed to create a file for her. This time it was Li Zhe's turn to be stunned. She was actually a public figure? He reached out to take the Jinjin Mei from Qin Kai's hands. Why would he need you if he already had somewhere to check? It's over 200 yuan a can. But Qin Kai was quick to put it away, grinning. That's the beginning of the exchange. Even if you don't listen, I won't refund you. And no one has ever dared to give me credit. Qin Kai began to recount Li Xiaowan's story, a monologue, and Li Zihe naturally listened intently. After all, information from Qin Kai's mouth was far more credible than from other public sources. It turned out that Li Xiaowan was the youngest daughter of the current head of the Jingchuan Li family. Though she looked young, she was a true second-generation Li. The second generation of the Li family formed the backbone of the current Li family, with those in their 50s and 60s spread across key federal departments, and young men in their 30s and 40s spread throughout the Federation star system. But Li Xiaowan was the most dazzling among them. After achieving B-level superpower status at the age of 16, she concealed her identity and joined the frontline Vanguard Battalion, enjoying the task of going behind enemy lines and wreaking havoc. This continued for 2 years, and by the time her family found her, she had already risen through the ranks to command a major mobile infantry brigade. Afterward, such a prodigy naturally enjoyed a smooth career path. Under her family's guidance, she was smoothly assigned to the 1st Army and, before the old commander's passing, she gracefully inherited the reins of the 1st Legion. Since taking command of the 1st Army, she has earned a reputation for her ruthless style on the federal front, demonstrating exceptional strategic and tactical command, striking fear into the enemy. What a masterful hand the Li family has. Upon hearing this, Li Zihe marveled. A young woman from a wealthy family could escape home and journey to the federal front, thousands of miles away. The sheer number of steps involved in this process was incredible. To ensure the smooth transition to the 1st Army, the Li family patriarch even allowed his own daughter to serve in the Vanguard Battalion for 2 years. His ruthless heart truly speaks volumes. What exactly is the Vanguard Battalion? It's a cannon fodder unit dedicated to probing weak points in the enemy's strategic deployment, luring out exposed firepower points, infiltrating behind enemy lines, and disrupting enemy communications. What kind of enemy were they facing? They were the most brutal genetically modified humans. The Federation and the Blood Clan were fighting for control of the most brutal region, where the energy environment was particularly suitable for genetic fusion and modification. Therefore, the Blood Clan merged the genes of humans, wolves, and other wild beasts to create ferocious modified warriors, thus overcoming their limited number of warriors. Furthermore, they were nominally an independent local government, so the Blood Clan's tactics were highly sophisticated. Unlike genetically enhanced warriors, they continuously corrected human genes, while genetic modification distorted them. Evil is inherently powerful, and for many years, the Federation's fierce battles against these genetically modified armies were arduous, a stark contrast to the subtle hostility on Crimson Star. And facing such brutal genetically modified warriors, what did the soldiers of the Vanguard Battalion have to offer? Nothing. They had no mechas, so they gave you some rations, a rifle, and off you went. Good luck. Therefore, Li Zihe considered the Li family patriarch to be unkind and a worthless person. You're wrong about that. Li Xiaowan's military service wasn't arranged by the Li family, it was her own wish. Qin Kai said to Li Zihe, I heard from my mother that the supervisory department arranged for Li Xiaowan to run away from home. It seems the person on the 36th floor personally sent her there. Li Zihe was stunned. If someone was so cruel to him, how much more cruel would he be to his enemies? Li Zihe would never do something as crazy as wearing a mobile suit and carrying a large gun to penetrate deep behind enemy lines and then fight against the mechas. Qin Kai. If I am targeted by Li Xiaowan, what is your most reasonable suggestion? Qin Kai raised his eyebrows and said calmly, no suggestions, just wait for death. Li Zihe lowered his head and was silent for a moment, then said softly, no, I will resist. Resist, Qin Kai said with a smile. Li Xiaowan is not a B-level now, she is an S-level superpower. I heard that the more the enemy resists, the more excited she will be. No, Li Zihe shook his head and said, she is not S-level, at least not an ordinary S-level. Qin Kai was a little confused. It is very common for children of wealthy families to hide their superpower level. He only had one level, but since Li Zihe knew that Li Xiaowan was at least S-level, why did you resist? What right did he have to resist? I have been busy these days and have not thanked you for the rewards. Now I will summarize it. Thanks to the Book Friend Arbitration Agency for the reward, thanks to the Book Friend Hometown Meat Spring again for the reward, thanks to the Book Friend Fish Tears What Taste for the reward, and thanks to the Book Friend Sunshine Stainless for the reward. Thanks. Chapter 117, Very interesting little rabbit. Alright, Li Xiaowan might not attack you directly. After all, you're now a junior inspector general in the Ministry of Supervision. Given her personal relationship with Minister Qiao, there's always room for maneuver. Li Zhe smiled but said nothing. He knew the faces of the bigwigs all too well. They would sell anyone out for their own benefit. An inspector general's subordinate was nothing. As long as they were well managed and cleverly arranged, they could sell him out and pocket the money, and still have both the inside and the outside. And what's more, Li Zhe was just an outsider planted by the temple. Let's go. Li Zhe was in a bad mood and stood up to leave the cafe. Oh, by the way, you found out what you asked me to investigate last time. I can't believe you're still so murderous, Qin Kai suddenly said. What do you mean by murderous? Li Zhe was lost in thought and didn't react for a moment. Didn't you kill this person? Qin Kai opened his communicator and played the photo of the silenced vampire spy. When Li Zhe arrived, he was already dead, and the little boy, Jesse, was nowhere to be found. So, he drew a portrait and asked Qin Kai to help him find clues. He was surprised to find information so quickly. I didn't kill him. He was silenced when I arrived. The person was so fast I couldn't catch up, so we need to search for clues among his connections. Qin Kai nodded. This man's name is Wilk. He's a vampire, and a well-known vampire smuggler. He specializes in trading large quantities of vampire specialties with people in the Federation, including Li Boyun. Here's the information on everyone connected to him. It's not complete, but it's the best I can give you. Qin Kai sent Li Zhe a file containing a wealth of information. Li Zhe opened it and scanned it, suddenly spotting a familiar name. John. At the end of a dark alley in District 47 of Star City, a three-story villa lay shrouded in eerie darkness. Li Zhe drifted gently inside, finding the owner's room with the same precision as if it were his own. A middle-aged vampire was sipping from a cup, but the wine had a strange flavor, suggesting it was laced with an unholy blood wine. Viscount John, huh? The vampire retreated in shock, his back pressed against the wall, his fangs bared, his blood boiling. Then he saw a masked man walk in, boldly dragging a chair over and sitting 2 meters in front of him. Viscount John was shocked. His fangs were bared, his blood boiling. Anyone with even a passing familiarity with vampires knew how dangerous he was. He would bite anything that came near him, absolutely unpredictable. And yet, this seemingly frail man dared to sit 2 meters in front of him. How audacious. He only needed to lunge forward now, and he could kill him in a fraction of a second. But a lingering unease gripped John. He scooted a few meters against the wall, creating distance between him and Li Zhe, and asked, "Who are you? What do you want? Don't ask such foolish questions. If you don't want to die, answer my questions. If your answers satisfy me, I might consider sparing your life." How ridiculous. Do you think I'm a cowardly commonwealth? The great vampires never accept threats. Viscount John moved to the side and behind Li Zhe, plucked a dagger from the wall, and grasped it. He knew from Li Zhe's voice that he was a teenager, and the knife in hand gave him a surge of confidence. But his confidence lasted only a fraction of a second. As his vision suddenly blurred, and a face covered in flexible metal loomed before him. Viscount John's hand was grasped by Li Zhe. Gathering all his energy, he tried to resist, only to find himself facing not a human, but a steel mecha. Crack, 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 the sound of finger bones being forcibly snapped was resounding, like firecrackers going off during a holiday. Viscount John was terrified. The dagger he had just obtained was forcibly snatched away, and then he felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. Li Zhe stabbed him through the shoulder with a single blow, pinning him to the snow-white wall. A trickle of blood flowed down the wall, like a realistic painting that blended impressionism and abstraction. Tell me, Wilk was murdered a few days ago, and someone took a little boy named Jesse from him. Who is that man? Where did he go? How can we find him? John gritted his teeth and said nothing, knowing the consequences of speaking out might not be good. Li Zhe tilted his head and reached out to grasp one of Viscount John's fangs. John was terrified and struggled, but Li Zhe pressed a hand to his chest and shook it casually. The strange rhythm of his movements made it impossible for him to muster any blood. He stared at the young man before him, his flexible metal mask shimmering with a chandelier's glow, creating a sinister and eerie presence. Feeling the pain of his fangs about to snap, Viscount John finally broke down. I'm telling you, after Wilk died, I did arrange for a vampire boy to leave. He boarded a smuggling ship back to the Twilight System. Li Ziyi, still gripping John's fangs, asked grimly, "Who told you to arrange that?" "I really don't know. Baron Sharon was the one who sent him here, but he just died in his home last night. I was afraid I might be next, so I've been hiding out here drinking." Li Ziyi narrowed his eyes, sensing John's shifting expression, and finally released his fangs. "I'll give you 3 days to find out something useful. If not, you know the consequences. Here's my number." John felt the immense pressure in his chest dissipate, and with it, Li Ziyi's presence vanished. He frantically looked around, sensing everything, and it took him a long time to confirm that Li Ziyi was truly gone. Then he immediately took out his communicator and dialed a number. "Hello? Lord Langson? I just met someone who might be the mechanic you were looking for. The mask he's wearing is indeed the flexible metal limited edition of the Eiler family. I will never make a mistake. He is very powerful," John reported to the other party in a hurry. The other party would occasionally ask a question or two in return, and John would hurriedly make various explanations. But John, who was eager to deal with others, did not notice that Li Ziyi's figure slowly floated out from the shadow in the corner of his room. He tilted his head and looked at John, as if he was looking at a very interesting little rabbit. He really likes to jump around. Chapter 118. Of course I'm waiting for you. It was late at night, a time when everyone was asleep. But on a quiet street in District 47 of Qingxing City, several people were bustling about in a black official car. "Section Chief, we've captured the enemy's signal. We need a few seconds to locate the receiver." "Section Chief, we've located the enemy. It's in the southwest corner of Qinghai Community on Hulan Road in Block 12. They're using portable jammers, so we can't pinpoint the exact room." District 47 was the territory of the 3rd Supervisory Section. Since Li Ziyi was looking for someone in clues there, Qin Kai was sure to find them, so it was natural to utilize public resources. He gave a word, and District 47's 7th Sergeant quickly assembled a small squad of mobile infantry and electronic reconnaissance equipment, which they unexpectedly put to good use. Meanwhile, in the 3-story villa at the end of the alley, Xiaowan had just finished a phone call when he turned and saw a silver, flexible mask. A cruel, murderous look, a disdain for all life, shone from the mask's eyes. Swish, with just one sound, the thin and sharp Xiang short knife brushed past a gap between John's ribs and accurately pierced his heart. No, Viscount John only had time to shout out half a word before he felt all his blood and vitality being instantly drained from his body. "Damn it, he's actually a vampire. Why didn't I feel it?" In the last few seconds before his death, Viscount John had no hatred in his heart, only endless regret. In the middle of the night, Yao suddenly received a call from Li Ziyi, asking her to call the 3 guys from the 172nd Monitoring Group to stand by at the southwest corner of Qinghai Community on Hulan Road in Block 12. After they arrived, they received another call from Li Ziyi. "Guard the western position of the southwest corner of Qinghai Community. Activate your telepathic ability. If you find a powerful vampire, you don't have to fight him, just keep an eye on him. I'll be there soon." "I understand, boss, but if we don't take action, it will be difficult to write the report requesting merit. The 3 of us are all under punishment. We urgently need merit to compensate." "The merit is all yours. I don't need any merit." Yao was stunned for a moment, and explained kindly, "Boss, we just ask you to take us with you when you write the report requesting merit. For the sake of your future in the supervision department, you still need merit." Li Ziyi ignored Yao. He didn't know when he would run away. What future did he have in the supervision department? Qinghai Community is not a particularly high-end community. There are densely populated high-rise buildings, and there are many residents in each building. In this environment, the experienced counter-reconnaissance expert would undoubtedly be at his wit's end. Therefore, no matter how desperately Ziyi was, he could only search bit by bit, which was extremely arduous. However, with the help of his powerful perception and the power of inscriptions, he finally found a clue in the basement of a high-rise building. They actually built a basement beneath a residential building. Li Ziyi pried open a cleverly hidden secret door, revealing an underground passageway clearly constructed by a person. Li Ziyi quietly walked down and, after a few turns, arrived at a basement living room. The living room was not large, just over 100 square meters. Inside, there was a table where 6 vampires were seated. Li Ziyi hid in the shadows of the basement entrance, observing quietly for 10 minutes before making a very strange discovery. Each of them had a wine glass in front of them. To Li Ziyi's taste, the wine, while not particularly fine, was considered a good vampire wine in Star City. But the 6 men took only sips of each drink, extremely restrained. For 10 minutes, they barely exchanged a single word. Only one vampire asked, "Why haven't you arrived yet?" Another replied, "Almost on the way." They seemed to be waiting for someone. But slowly, Li Ziyi seemed to guess something. He emerged from the shadows, chuckling coldly. "Who are you waiting for?" The 6 vampires quickly dispersed, occupying 4 corners of the basement living room. Clang, click, click, the living room door slammed shut, and several mechanical locks engaged, trapping Li Ziyi and the 6 vampires inside. "Of course we're waiting for you, Mr. Mechanic." The leading vampire stepped forward with a smile, pulling out 2 golden daggers from beneath his tuxedo. Others gathered around, wielding daggers, short blades, and various other close combat weapons. Vampires are powerful in close combat, so many prefer to use short blades. In this underground living room of over 100 square meters, 6 vampires besieging Li Ziyi closely is a truly dangerous situation. However, even when the crowd surrounded Li Ziyi within a meter, he didn't panic at all. Instead, he asked curiously, "How did you know I'm a mechanic? Do you believe what John says?" Everyone laughed at Li Ziyi's question. "We found your discarded mobile armor on planet A16. The Rose series of mobile armor is rare, and it is the standard survival armor of the Bloodblade mecha. We have found all the mecha wreckage in the orbit of planet A16, except for one Bloodblade mecha, which had no one in it. We have determined through various channels that the Bloodblade mecha belonged to a mechanic, and that mechanic followed the survivors of the Red Rock City to Star City. Given his character and position, he will definitely investigate the cause of the ambush on planet A16. So Jesse, who was supposed to go directly to the Twilight Continent, came to Star City, and happened to be discovered by the survivors of the Red Rock City." Li Ziyi interrupted with a smile. "Then, you set up a trap, killed Wilk and pretended to silence him, and then led me to that small street. That ambush was not organized hastily, but was preset in advance, right?" Li Ziyi suddenly understood that he had been trying to investigate the 2 masked men these days, and the other party was taking advantage of his eagerness and dug a trap waiting for him to jump in. Although Li Ziyi had a clear mind and quick thinking, he had never been a real spy or agent after all, and his counter-reconnaissance experience was very lacking. As a result, he really rushed in. The leader of the Blood Clan became excited, staring at Li Ziyi with burning eyes and said, "Did you finally admit it? You killed so many of us on the rainy street that night, and took Johnny away. Did you think of today at that time?" "No," Li Ziyi said frankly, "I didn't expect to fall into your trap, but so what? I'm going to die anyway, what's the difference?" No, no, the leader of the Blood Clan grinned, "You may not die. I heard that you are very popular with the Marcus Muayu. You should be very unique, right?" "You misunderstood me," Li Ziyi shook his head and said. "What I mean is, no matter what the situation is, you are the ones who will die anyway, so what's the difference?" Thanks to the book friend Yu Can Shang for the reward. Chapter 119 I'm angry. It's you who'll be dying anyway, so what's the difference? As soon as Li Ziyi finished speaking, the basement living room suddenly became so quiet you could hear a pin drop, even the 6 vampires' breathing paused. Immediately, an overwhelming murderous aura filled the enclosed space of over 100 square meters, irritating Li Ziyi's skin like a physical substance. Li Ziyi's body erupted in excitement, the kill inscription humming and trembling, the golden rim gleaming brightly around its edges. He felt the excitement of an esports player about to enter a world championship. Clang, clang, 2 soft metallic hums echoed, and Li Ziyi's dark blade and fragrant blade knives were drawn from their delicate sheaths. With Li Ziyi's skill, he could definitely achieve silent strikes, but at this moment, he felt that this was even more exciting. With the 2 clangs, like the bell tolling the start of a match, the 7 figures in the basement living room moved almost simultaneously, and the battle suddenly erupted in full force. Li Ziyi felt a tremor of excitement. Every moving object within his field of vision began to slow down, yet he remained completely unaffected. He felt as if this was the most skewed experience of asymmetric perception since his first hunt with a mutant tiger. In Li Ziyi's vision, 7 vampires moved slowly, their teeth bared, their knives thrust towards him. He, in turn, wielded his fragrant knife with a deft movement, striking 17 times in a fraction of a second, deflecting several close enemy blades and slicing through the flesh of several vampires. Sure enough, only the most dangerous thrills can unlock even greater killing skills. In an instant, something within the kill inscription unlocked, breaking through a barrier. A higher level of combat experience and sensations surfaced in his mind, rapidly analyzed, comprehended, transformed, and absorbed. Ding ding dang dang. 7 figures clashed and intertwined, concluding a fierce and utterly dangerous clash in an instant. Then, they scattered and fell, each occupying one of the 4 corners of the basement living room. Li Ziyi's coat was ripped, his shirt torn. He stood alone in the center of the living room, his frail frame making him seem even more isolated. My clothes are torn, and I'm angry. The young man's voice was emotionless, emanating from a mouth covered by a flexible metal mask. It was cold and dead, as if it belonged not to the human world, but rather the wrath of hell. Who are you? The leading vampire shouted in terror and fury. Just seconds ago, 6 arrogant vampires had looked at Li Ziyi with disdain, intending to capture and torture him to satisfy their own evil desires. But in those few seconds, 4 vampires' hearts were filled with intense fear and regret. Yes, 4 vampires. The other 2 were lying on the cold floor, clutching their necks tightly, hoping to slow the flow of blood and delay their death. Vampires have an extremely strong regenerative capacity. A single cut would stop the bleeding and heal within moments. Even if their blood vessels were severed, experienced vampires had various methods and gadgets to quickly manage the damage. However, as Li Ziyi cut their necks, the Xiaowan knife subtle twists and turns in a strange trajectory, leaving the incision missing. Combined with the Xiaowan knife's insidious paralyzing properties, the wounds left by the 2 vampires were extremely bizarre. So, the 2 vampires on the ground sadly realized they were powerless to prevent their own deaths. They could only hope that the other 4 vampires would quickly defeat Li Ziyi and perform major surgery. Count Langson, hurry, a count lying on the ground pleaded with the leading vampire. But Langson, looking at the other 3 vampires, felt a sinking feeling in his heart. How could they dare confront Li Ziyi head-on and end the battle quickly? Even a tactic of engaging in a free-for-all, using numbers to wear down Li Ziyi, was unlikely to work. 6 people surrounded them, yet they remained unscathed, defeating the enemy in an instant and completely emboldening them. Is this a fucking mechanic? Are you telling me this is a fucking mechanic? Only untalented mortals would be mechanics. With his ethereal agility and reflexes, shouldn't he be a pilot? And now, to prevent the other party from getting spooked and fleeing, he even locked the door. What a trap. I said my clothes are torn and I'm angry. Count Langson looked at the cold, chilling Li Ziyi and suddenly said, "We'll compensate you for your clothes." How do you want to compensate? Accepting defeat and compensating the victor's losses is a hallmark of vampire society. Count Langson, already anxious, subconsciously assumed Li Ziyi was demanding compensation. Of course, compensating for a single piece of clothing was out of the question. Compensation between vampires could easily cost half a small family's fortune. Tell me, who sent you looking for a mechanic like me, and tell me, who leaked the Red Rock City Interstellar Fleet's jump parameters to the Federation? Langson came to his senses at this moment, realizing that his position with Li Ziyi was irreconcilable. I can't answer your question, because even if I do, we'll die. But you'll learn all this sooner or later. Just understand that her power is far greater than you imagine. Tonight, either we call it quits and pretend nothing happened, or we die together. No matter how powerful you are, we, 2 earls and 2 viscounts, Li Ziyi interrupted Langson coldly, I will exterminate your family, we're all lurkers, you think. Li Ziyi hooked a finger, and a drop of blood floated from the neck of a vampire on the ground. He sipped it gently, and after a few seconds, he said, the original ancestor is from the Zeke family. 6 generations ago, the Clark family's bloodline merged, and 3 generations ago, an unknown, lowly mixed blood was added. Earl Langson and several other families were shocked. They had never imagined that Li Ziyi had such a skill in identifying bloodlines. Vampire society places great emphasis on bloodline inheritance, especially among noble families, whose bloodline networks are meticulously recorded. Nobles of any significance would register their family crests in bloodline heritage with the Vampire Council to ensure they receive sufficient distribution of benefits. Hearing Li Ziyi's precise recounting of the vampire's bloodline, everyone felt as if the secrets of these lurkers had been casually revealed. Young man, you've made a mistake, A vampire in the corner approached Earl Langson, his weapon drawn. If it were just for our own lives, we might have compromised and tolerated it, but now that you've threatened our family, you must die here today. The other two vampires approached, surrounding Li Zhe once again. Li Zhe was somewhat surprised. The last time he'd used this tactic to threaten Johnny, he'd immediately revealed everything he knew. But this time, he'd repeated the same trick, only to have his enemy become so desperate. So you still think you can kill me? Langson nodded. Yes, at most, it'll cost you a heavy price, so, what now? Li Zhe suddenly opened his arms, as if embracing the sky. A long river of blood appeared in the underground living room, and the rich blood color permeated the ceiling of the living room, flowing like a real river of blood. Chapter 120. It doesn't look like it. Who are you, sir? Count Langson's face was filled with despair. From the moment the blood river loomed in the underground living room, every vampire present lost the will to resist, not even the thought of begging for mercy. This was no simple bloodline suppression, but rather a class-based oppression rooted in the vampire power structure. Just as the legendary temple's power derives from the gods, so too does the vampire power derive from the blood river. Yet, the vast majority of vampires remain unable to sense the blood river's presence or receive its gifts throughout their lives. Only those of pure and noble ancient bloodlines can awaken the qualifications to peer into the blood river, pray for its favor, and receive their true name. Resonating with the blood river and glimpsing its deep secrets is even more proof of one's bloodline's purity. Whenever a vampire who resonates with the blood river emerges, they garner the admiration and attention of the entire vampire community. Why were 6 of the ancient 13 clans squeezed out of the ranks of the elite, relegated to the status of semi-prestigious clans? It was because, over the centuries, not enough descendants had earned recognition from the blood river, nor had any vampires emerged who could resonate with it. Even the 7 great vampire clans, Blood Mew, Monroe, and Night Phantom, had only produced a single Mew in the last few decades. So, Langson knew exactly who could stir up the blood river, and who these lurkers could possibly confront. If one's bloodline and talent were superior enough to earn the respect of vampire society, who would choose to be such a suffocating lurker? Wouldn't it be better to stay in the Twilight Continent and enjoy a life of luxury? Not to mention that the blood river Li Zhe had completely suppressed Langson and his group. Even if they couldn't suppress it, they would have no choice but to flee. No one dared to challenge Li Zhe. If they challenged such a person today, not even a pet in their clan would survive tomorrow. Barring a titanic brawl between powerful families, no one would dare provoke a vampire capable of stirring up a river of blood. Answer my question. My promise still stands, but my patience has its limits. If I learn what you're hiding, you won't be the only ones to die. Hearing Li Zhe's chilling words, Earl Langson felt like crying. Just a few minutes ago, who would have thought that such noble and powerful vampires would consider the promise of killing only myself and sparing my family such a great favor? The 2 vampires on the ground loosened their grip, letting the blood gush from their necks, begging for a quick death to end this torture. We are willing to die, but we can't tell. Langson and the others were left with no choice. If they told, their entire family would surely perish. If they didn't, their entire family would likely die, too. What difference would it make? Li Zhe narrowed his eyes, thought for a moment, and said coldly, each of you must nominate a relative to receive the protection of the Blooddusk family. Langson and the others' eyes lit up, then dimmed again. Their families numbered dozens, even hundreds, yet they could only nominate one survivor. What kind of a gift was this? The 2 viscounts suddenly raised their short blades and decisively slashed at their necks, chasing the 2 vampire corpses on the ground to join them. I have a daughter. She's very talented. Langson finally made his decision. In those few minutes, he seemed to have aged 100 years. I received a secret letter from Counselor Kia containing 2 interstellar jump parameters, but I honestly don't know if it's Lord Muayu's fleet. Which Counselor Kia? Li Zhe demanded coldly. Kia Bourbon, the young master of the Bourbon family, is said to have some connection to the Clark family. Li Zhe remembered how, when Wilk was silenced, he had exchanged the pronunciation of K from him in exchange for revenge. Whether it was Counselor Kia or the Clark family, it would fit. Sir, please allow us to die with honor. This is our final request. After answering all the questions, Langson produced a vial and prayed for an intact corpse. Suddenly, another earl spoke up. Sir, you have rashly stirred up the blood river in Star City, which will inevitably lead to a severe hunt. Perhaps even an S-rank expert is on his way. We have been lurking in Star City for years, so we are still of some use. Langson stared at the other Earl in surprise, then suddenly realized something and turned to look at Li Zihe with a complicated expression. They were all experienced lurkers with astonishing observation skills. During their previous conversation, they seemed to have noticed something different about Li Zihe. This young man, though unfathomable, seemed more merciful than those of the noble and wealthy. Perhaps the two of them. But the next moment, Li Zihe stabbed each of them directly in the heart. As the two earls stared in horror, he absorbed all their blood in essence, transforming them into shrunken corpses. I'm quite kind, but I'm also good at living. I've never wasted food since I was a child. A sharp stinging sensation was already building in Li Zihe's mind, his danger perception constantly blaring. He believed the Earl's story was true, that he was being hunted by a supremely powerful being. But so what? Do you think the blood-red river is my ultimate trump card? A stardust particle ignited within Li Zihe's body, instantly expanding into a small star spiral, then scattering vast expanses of brilliant starlight, slowly swirling around him. Li Zihe stretched out his hand and flicked it, sending 2 stars raining down upon the 2 shrunken corpses of the Earl. Boom! A blazing flame erupted, instantly reducing the 2 to ash. Sins are past, souls rest in peace. Li Zihe softly recited a eulogy from the temple, a strange surge of nostalgia stirring within him. He had seen Chen Tong incinerate the corpse of the insect queen. He had plundered on the insect planet in the same manner. After awakening Che's memories and possessing his own Xingxuan, he naturally mastered these little tricks. Bang! A loud noise erupted behind Li Zihe, and the door, completely secured by several mechanical locks, flew open. A sturdy, robust man entered. His face was cold and imposing. Even before he entered, he exuded a powerful murderous aura, as if determined to annihilate all living things. But when he entered the basement living room and saw the starlight emanating from Li Zihe, his cold, murderous eyes suddenly narrowed. The temple's starlight symbolizes purity, justice, and the nemesis of all evil. Who is this young man? But before he could ask, a cold voice declared, the supervisory department is investigating this case. All outsiders must leave immediately, the sturdy, robust man said coldly. Star City Garrison, tracking down a key vampire suspect. No one is allowed to interfere. Li Zihe pulled out his communicator and called Xiaowan. He wasn't familiar with some of the Star City regulations. I ran into a garrison soldier who wanted to rob our loot. Are there any rules for that? What? Boss, where are you? We'll be there soon. Damn, we're the only ones robbing people. Xiaowan was furious. The 3 of them had been out on missions, robbing people plenty of times, but they'd never been robbed before. A few minutes later, Xiaowan, Xiu, and Molun rushed into the basement living room and saw the 2 men in a tense standoff. The 3 were first drawn to the starlight emanating from Li Zihe. Xiu was shocked, Molun was also shocked, and Xiaowan was drooling. Identify this guy. Is he from the garrison? Is he qualified to compete with our supervisory department for credit? Xiaowan then spun around to look at the sturdy man. Then, she carefully slipped behind Li Zihe and whispered, Boss, this is Lin Zihe. Lin Zihe, you must have recognized the wrong person. Lin Zihe is an S-class superpower, but he doesn't look like one. Li Zihe's voice was so loud that Xiaowan immediately retreated behind him in embarrassment. Xiu and Molun immediately became nervous and hurried over to stand beside Li Zihe, bolstering their boss's confidence. Lin Zihe's teeth were grinding. But he really didn't dare to do anything to the young man. You dare to mess with a temple monk who can radiate starlight? Chapter 121 Treasure Boy. Li Zihe underestimated the consequences of stirring up the blood river. Minutes after Lin Zihe arrived, several people in the basement felt a slight tremor in the ground, a clear sign of heavy equipment arriving from above. You 3, go to the stairwell and block any other outsiders, then request backup from the headquarters. Xiaowan and the others exchanged glances, ultimately leaving Xiu, the strongest, behind. Xiaowan and Molun rushed to the surface to prevent the rest of the garrison from entering. While Li Zihe considered their espers to be of low rank, to the average soldier, they were easily one-on-one against 100, capable of holding off the enemy for a while. Lin Zihe watched Molun and Xiaowan advance and said coldly, I warn you again, the garrison has a duty to safeguard the safety of Star City. Now that a dangerous vampire suspect has appeared, this falls within our purview. Li Zihe ignored Lin Zihe. While Lin Zihe's S-rank espers were impressive, in vampire terms, they were only comparable to Vampire Marcus. Li Zihe is now a Blood Viscount, 2 ranks below the Marcus, but he wasn't really that scared when he saw the Blood Marcus. Boss, the investigation bureau is here too. Did we catch a big fish today? Why are they so excited and nervous? Yao shouted into the communicator. Boss, something's wrong today. Why are the garrison troops even deploying mechas? I feel like we can't hold up with just a few of us. Buzz buzz buzz. Li Zihe's communicator rang. He picked it up and saw it was an unfamiliar number. When he answered, it was actually the voice of Xiaowan, the big boss of the supervision department. Section Chief Li, what did you find at the scene? 6 vampires. Their specific identities are unknown, but they should be related to vampire spy silencing case some time ago. I was investigating Li Boyun's human trafficking case, and then I found a vampire sleeper. There was suspected fluctuation of a blood-colored river at the scene. I think there is a major conspiracy of the vampires behind this case. Li Zihe said a few simple words, indicating that he was tracing the case of Li Boyun's family, and he wanted to continue investigating this case. Did you find out from Li Boyun? Xiaowan pondered for a few seconds. Wait there, I'll get someone to help you. Li Zihe hung up. Lin Zihe, on the other end, sneered, even Minister Qiao has to follow the rules. The garrison's duty is to keep these vampire corpses and all the information and leads on the scene. Li Zihe's expression was impassive. If you're capable, take action. If you're not, shut up. Hey, Lin Zihe, enraged by Li Zihe, also took out his communicator and reported the situation to the garrison commander, emphasizing that there are unusual movements in the Blood River. A vampire who could stir up the Blood River was an invaluable strategic asset to the vampire community and a rare source of military merit and research for the Interstellar Federation. No one was willing to give it up. 10 minutes later, the helper Xiaowan had sent to Li Zihe arrived. Then, Lin Zihe didn't dare to say a word. Li Qiao was still wearing a black dress, but with an added hat. Her high heels clattered down the stairs, and she exuded a faint chill. Lin Zihe's face turned pale, and he reached for his communicator, but Li Qiao just glanced at him casually, and he backed off. Is there anything else the garrison can do here? I'm sorry, Your Excellency Commander Li, I'll take my leave. Lin Zihe didn't even dare to show any anger, and just walked away dejectedly with his head down. Li Zihe was also very surprised. How could such a beautiful woman achieve this? To the point where she could stop a baby crying at night? Your Excellency Commander Li, why are you here? Li Zihe asked softly. Li Qiao wandered the basement living room, hands behind her back, casually saying, I heard these people are related to Li Boyun. So, my Li family is involved, so why can't I come? Xiaowan and I have reached an agreement. The Li family and the Ministry of Supervision will jointly investigate the protests. This case is considered a related one. Li Qiao turned to look at Li Zihe and asked calmly, how did you detect the unusual movements in the Blood River? How did you kill those vampires at the scene? Who else helped you? During the confrontation with Lin Zihe, Li Zihe had already restrained his Starlight Stardust, having immediately proven himself not to be a vampire, clearing himself of any suspicion of any involvement in the Blood River's unusual movements. However, Li Qiao, rushing over, was unaware of this. With her extensive combat experience, she immediately noticed something was amiss at the scene. 2 vampires had died by slashing their throats, 2 others had been cremated, and 2 had unexpectedly committed suicide. What kind of formidable opponent had he encountered to drive a vampire, renowned for his ferocity and tenacity, to his own despair? Li Zihe was alone at the scene, seemingly a C-rank junior inspector general. This was a truly bizarre and inexplicable crime scene, no matter how you sliced it. Seeing Li Zihe's reluctance to speak, Li Qiao added, since Xiaowan wants me to resist the pressure from the garrison, we must be honest. You must trust me and tell me everything, not treat me like a fool. Li Zihe sighed, held up a finger, and said coldly, is that enough? A small ball of starlight drifted slowly above his finger, like a multicolored nebula firework, igniting the most beautiful colors in the night. Li Qiao's mouth dropped open in surprise, her beautiful eyes filled with a strange brilliance. It was like an anorexic lamb spotting a handful of the world's most tender, enticing grass. like a gold prospector who, with one blow of his axe, suddenly unearthed a mountain of gold so vast it would take him several lifetimes to harvest. In Li Xiaowan's eyes, all the unexpected events of the world were less captivating than the boy before her. Compared to that ethereal, blood-red river, this handsome boy was the rarest treasure. You really surprised me. Li Zhe put away the brilliant starlight. Li Xiaowan said reluctantly, actually, I've studied the temple's magic a bit. I need to carefully distinguish whether you can deal with these vampires on the scene. Li Zhe turned and walked out, saying, we must be honest with each other. Your acting skills are not very good, okay? I'll be honest. Li Xiaowan followed Li Zhe up the stairs and said softly, my master once told me that there are always some people in this world who will constantly surprise you. They are like a treasure trove that can never be fully excavated. Li Zhe slowed his pace and said nothing. He gently pushed open the door and walked out. Isn't it just a treasure, boy? I'm not modest. Chapter 122, say a few words. First of all, today, Lao Feng's book has reached 300,000 words. At Kidian, where less than 200,000 words are needed to be published these days, Lao Feng considers himself a conscientious writer. Also, Lao Feng apologizes to all my book fans who support me. Due to a recent bout of pneumonia, I've encountered some issues impacting the reading experience for all of you. But Lao Feng really has no other options. I went on an IV drip this morning. Lao Feng has a bad stomach, and there's a very effective anti-inflammatory medication that irritates his stomach, so I have to drip it very slowly. Otherwise, I'll have no appetite all day. By the time I get back in the afternoon, Lao Feng can code 2 chapters, barely maintaining a regular update schedule. I thought the treatment would be over today, and Lao Feng would work overtime to get some manuscripts in. But when I went for a follow-up checkup this morning, the CT scan showed obvious grayish-white marks, and I need further treatment. This is a difficult situation, because Lao Feng's book is due for publication on Friday, and the update must be updated by noon on the day of the launch, otherwise the 24-hour first-order data will be inaccurate. But Lao Feng doesn't have any manuscripts saved, and it was already evening when he came back from the IV and finished coding. So, I'm taking one day off today to work on one chapter, and I'll take one day off tomorrow to work on one chapter, and I'll be working on another chapter. It won't be up for sale until noon the day after tomorrow. Sorry. Hey everyone, I'm not a stingy person. I'm not saving free manuscripts to put on VIP chapters, otherwise I wouldn't have finished 300,000 words before putting it up. I really have no other choice this time, and I hope you can understand. Long live understanding. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Li Xiaowan's Amateur Research. In the early morning hours, while some in Star City were still sleeping in, those with precarious livelihoods dared not slack off and began their day's hard work early. In a small alley in District 12, steam billowed from a food stall's steamer. A dusty pot simmered beef bone soup, its rich aroma filling the alley. At this hour, the stall was busy, with only 2 diners per table. However, their appetites were astonishing, devouring nearly all the food. The owner, sweating profusely, kneaded the flour, his face anxiously urging his wife to quickly serve the broth and food to the customers. The deeds of superpowers were legends to ordinary people, but this man and woman were clearly not ordinary people. Therefore, the stall owner carefully served the 2 customers, fearing that angering them would bring him trouble. Li Zhe finished a basket of steamed buns and said softly, "You are a girl wearing a skirt, so you'd better pay attention to your eating manners." Li Xiaowan reached out and pressed Li Zhe's hand that was about to steal the steamer, and said with a smile, "A lady's eating manners are for outsiders to see. We are family now, so there is no need to be so pretentious." Family. Li Zhe reluctantly picked up the bowl and drank the broth, which made his hungry stomach feel a little better after tossing and turning all night. While drinking, he asked puzzledly, "How can we be family? Didn't I tell you?" Li Xiaowan glanced at Li Zhe and said, "Xiaowan and I agreed to set up a joint investigation team to investigate the conspiracy behind the demonstrators incident. You are the head of the investigation team, and I am the deputy head. Aren't we family?" Li Zihe forced himself to swallow a mouthful of broth. If the muscle control of a superpowered person was not far beyond that of an ordinary person, he might have really spit it out. He pointed a finger at his chest. I'm the head of the investigation team. Yes, Li Zihe pointed at Li Xiaowan's chest in disbelief. You're the deputy head of the investigation team, that's right. Li Xiaowan devoured a bun in one gulp, her answering swift and decisive. Li Zihe said nothing more, pulling out his communicator and calling Minister Qiao. Minister Qiao, are you sure Commander Li is the deputy head of the investigation team? Qiao Yan's voice was odd, as if she was trying to suppress some emotion. Yes, she's assisting you in investigating the conspiracy behind the protests. If you encounter any difficulties during the investigation, you can ask her to help you. After a long pause, Li Zihe hung up the phone. Li Xiaowan, on the other end, had already devoured all the steamed buns. She burped comfortably, then took out a delicate handkerchief and wiped her mouth gracefully. In an instant, she transformed from a lazy girl into a wealthy, second-generation noblewoman of the Li family. Li Zihe thought for a moment. I want to investigate the illegal dealings between Li Boyan and the vampires, as well as any evidence of the illicit human trafficking to the Twilight continent. Do you have any suggestions? Yes, Li Xiaowan stood up and headed out of the alley. Follow me, I'll take you to find the evidence. Li Zihe quickly left 2,000 yuan bills, bringing a smile to the face of the snack stand owner, who had been anxious all morning, and followed Li Xiaowan. Li Zihe had already confirmed that the masked man on the vampire side was connected to Counselor Qia of the Scarlet Council, so he could simply follow the clues and raid their lair. However, Li Zihe had no clue about the masked man planted by the Supervision Department alongside Mu Yu. He wanted to use this opportunity to investigate Li Boyan and see if he could find him. A very impressive magnetically powered car rushed onto Red Maple Street. The metal gates of number 26 Red Maple Street opened quickly, still a good distance away. The magnetic sedan drove directly into Li Boyan's private residence and stopped at the steps of the main hall. The butler, whose finger Li Zihe had twisted off, was already waiting at the bottom of the steps with his head bowed. Li Xiaowan got out of the car and asked coldly, "Is Li Boyan not home?" The butler said cautiously, "The third young master went to inspect the family's resource planet the day before yesterday, so he can't meet the eldest lady. If the eldest lady needs anything urgent, I can contact him, no need to bother," Li Xiaowan said coldly. "Take us to basement number 2 and prepare all the relevant information for transactions with the vampires." The butler's face turned green. "Information about transactions with the vampires? Miss, are you kidding? Even though the grandson beside you isn't wearing the supervisory department uniform today, I'd recognize him even if you turned to ash. In front of the supervisory department's chief of supervision, you want me to prepare information about transactions with the vampires? What's the point? Are federal laws really just for show? Or are they displeased with me, the butler, and are planning to let me take the blame? Servants of wealthy families all have a sense of purpose. When their masters favor them, they can be more glamorous than many federal politicians. But when their masters need to risk their lives to quell a problem, they must not resist, for it is futile." Under Li Xiaowan's death stare, the most popular butler offered no futile resistance. With a pale face, he led the two into a secret basement. "The information is all here, but the traded items were just delivered a few days ago. Only a few sensitive items remain." When the butler saw Li Xiaowan hand all the information to Li Zihe, he collapsed to the ground. However, Li Xiaowan's next words gave him a glimmer of hope. "Although you have obtained evidence of human smuggling between Li Boyan and the vampires, I can assure you that Li Boyan has countless ways to exonerate himself. The most you can do is to capture this butler." Li Zihe clenched the information in his hand and shook his head. "I don't care about the life or death of a butler. What I care about is whether these federal people who were traded out have any chance of being rescued." Li Zihe had already made up his mind. Later, he would take the transaction information directly to the intelligence department of the supervisory department to apply for the use of the masked men of the Twilight continent to investigate the case for him, and then screen out the thorn lurking around Mu Yu. This was Li Zihe's only way and idea now. The magnetic car drove out of number 26 Red Maple Street and drove along the street towards District 1. "Where are we going now?" "You should take me back to the supervisory department." "No rush," Li Xiaowan said with a faint smile. "I'll take you somewhere first. As for Li Boyan's matter, I'll call him tonight and have him come back to talk to you directly. Li Zhe thought about it and decided it didn't matter. Since Minister Qiao had already confirmed that she could cooperate with Li Qiao, she wouldn't blatantly sell him out or even eat him up, right? 10 minutes later, Li Qiao's car pulled into an exquisite and quiet villa. She led Li Zhe into what was clearly her own private room. The calm Li Zhe couldn't help but feel nervous again. Come with me. I'll show you something. I'm sure to surprise you. Surprise? Haha. Li Zhe smiled, not quite believing it. Ever since he awakened the inscription secret realm, he had rarely felt extreme fear again. The past experiences of his powerful ancestors had given him a stable foundation. Li Zhe followed Li Qiao into one of her secret rooms. The room was empty except for a row of portraits on the wall. Li Zhe's expression grew solemn, for he spotted several striking portraits among the row. Their faces bore a striking resemblance to his own. These are some of the most exceptional and powerful figures in the Jingchuan Li family's history. I've been conducting amateur research for years and have discovered an interesting phenomenon. The more a Li family member resembles a particular person, the better their genetic sequence and the higher their ceiling of supernatural power. Li Qiao circled around Li Zhe, her conscious fingers reappearing, caressing his face. Unlike back in the supervisory department, she controlled them with extreme gentleness, a stark contrast to the harshness and impoliteness of the previous day. But Li Zhe remained enraged. The stardust in his chest trembled, and a burst of starlight erupted, shattering Li Qiao's conscious fingers. I'm sorry, Commander Li, I don't think your current behavior has anything to do with the investigation. I'm leaving. Li Qiao was not angry, but said lightly, take another look and then make a decision. A row of portraits were hung on the wall of the secret room. The top portrait was covered with a silk curtain. Li Qiao walked over and stretched out her hand to carefully peel it off. This portrait is something left by the Li family from the previous civilization, but for some reason, a portrait occupies the front position in the protection sequence of all relics. Of course, mine is a replica, the real one is. Li Qiao stopped talking because she had noticed the strong surprise in Li Zhe's eyes. Li Zhe was really shocked. This portrait of a person left by the Li family looks very similar to himself. It is almost to the point of being indistinguishable from each other. And in the bottom corner of this portrait, there is a deformed ancient Kali word. Che. Chapter 124. Do you dare? Li Zhe's shock lasted only a moment. However, he didn't try to hide his surprise from Li Qiao. Instead, he took 2 steps forward, approaching the replica of Che's portrait. Since awakening his art inscription, Li Zhe could not only effortlessly create landscapes and portraits of exceptional artistic value, but also developed a profound appreciation for the art form. He examined Che's portrait closely. Although it was a replica, he analyzed and appreciated the colors, lighting, and brushstrokes, gradually discerning something, triggering a reaction from the hidden secret realm. Chuckles, the girl's silvery, bell-like laughter echoed within the secret realm, bringing a particularly joyful feeling to Che. Lam sat across from Che, one hand on an antique easel, the other rapidly painting. The carefree smile on her lips and the speed of her arms' movements made it seem as if she wasn't painting a serious portrait of Lan, but rather a comical, distorted graffiti. Sure enough, when Che snatched Lan's masterpiece, he discovered it was a half-naked portrait. Che's figure was exaggerated and comical, yet the brushwork and lighting were exceptionally brilliant. From a purely artistic perspective, it was truly a rare masterpiece. Playful banter erupted between the two, escalating into fierce, uncontrollable battle. But Li Zhe, observing from the sidelines, abandoned his attempt to appreciate Che's joy and focused entirely on the portrait. Suddenly, Li Zhe awoke from his hidden secret realm and examined Li Qiao's treasured portrait of Che. The lighting, brushwork, and colors were all unmistakably similar. This painting had been painted by Lan for Che. Li Qiao also walked over to the portrait, standing shoulder to shoulder with Li Zhe. She proudly declared, "We've been researching the identity of the person depicted in this portrait for years, and after all these years, we've finally achieved some results. We believe this is one of our Li family's greatest ancestors from the previous civilization. Every Li descendant who closely resembles this portrait possesses the closest immaculate bloodline and genetic sequence to that of their ancestor. How can you be sure he's your ancestor? Perhaps this is just a piece of art from the previous civilization, part of your Li family's collection. Li Ziqi's blunt suspicion infuriated Li Xiaowan, but she refrained from a tirade out of consideration for his face. Instead, she opened a wall safe and pulled out a dated piece of paper. This was preserved with a portrait. Although it's a replica, it's invisible to the average person, and of course, incomprehensible to the average person. Li Ziqi took the paper and, upon opening it, discovered it was written in ancient Calicut. The letter consisted of 2 parts. The opening section requested that it be delivered to Che, while the latter section was written in the rare literary style of ancient Kali. If you can only return, I am willing to forget everything in the past, to get to know you, fight with you, and fall in love with you all over again. If you are willing to return, I am willing to give up everything I have, to travel far away with you, and become a happy traveler. This was a love poem, filled with a deep attachment to a certain person and, though not directly stated, a heartbreaking regret and apology. What exactly happened between Lan and Che? Li Ziqi instinctively believed that this was a letter from Lan to Che. But the letter did not trigger a reaction in his hidden secret realm, providing him with no corresponding interpretation. We've studied this letter and confirmed it's from a temple in the previous civilization. However, the ancient Kali script is grammatically strange, so we've only been able to decipher a portion of its contents. This is a letter from a prominent figure within the temple, requesting it be delivered to a certain ancestor of our family. This shows that the temple acknowledges he is a patriarch of the Li family, and that you likely have some special connection to him. Li Xiaowan stood beside Li Ziqi, explaining the letter's contents to him, hoping he would believe her and acknowledge Che as one of the Li family's ancestors, and furthermore, acknowledge his own special connection to the family. But after a few seconds, Li Xiaowan suddenly sensed something was amiss. She noticed that Li Ziqi's gaze was constantly shifting across the letter, as if he were reading a letter. Surprised, she asked, "Can you read ancient Kali?" Li Ziqi was silent for a few seconds, then replied calmly, "I have connections with the temple and know a little bit about it." Li Xiaowan simply refused to believe Li Ziqi's lies. Not only was ancient Kali difficult to understand, but it was also practically unavailable anywhere in the world. The temple considered this divine language of a previous civilization almost forbidden. Not only was ancient Kalic script inaccessible to ordinary people, but even many of the temple's lower-ranking monks and warriors were denied access. Li Xiaowan had spent over a decade studying ancient Kalic script, yet this letter still seemed like a mystery to her. Li Ziqi's a little bit was a significant blow to her. She took 2 deep breaths and asked seriously, "How much is a little bit? Can you understand this letter?" Li Ziqi didn't answer her, but instead asked, "This letter isn't the original. When you copied it, did you pay attention to the handwriting? Where is the original?" Li Xiaowan narrowed her eyes, her brows furrowed. Those who knew her knew that this seemingly elegant Miss Li was about to reveal her violent, dark side. No one has ever dared to answer my question with a rhetorical question. You, Section Chief Li Ziqi, are the first. Li Ziqi, engrossed in the letter, finally noticed Li Xiaowan's unusual behavior. He silently returned the letter and turned to head out the door. He instinctively felt it was best not to engage with Li Xiaowan at this moment. "Do you want to see the original letter?" Li Ziqi thought for a moment and nodded. He was deeply concerned about the fate of Lan and Che, as he thought of his relationship with Chen Tong. The letter is in the ancestral hall of the Li family in Jingchuan. If you want to see it yourself, it might be a little troublesome. Forget it then. Li Ziqi lowered his head and walked out, disguising the cold look in his eyes. He hated the behavior of people who took a little bit of what they wanted and then made all kinds of demands. "Hey," Li Xiaowan stopped Li Ziqi and said calmly, "Since I've brought you here today and you've seen so many secrets of the Li family, don't you think you should leave a blood sample to confirm your identity as a true descendant?" "You want my blood sample for genetic testing?" Li Ziqi turned and looked at Li Xiaowan, as if he had witnessed something very funny. "I don't even know my own genetic makeup. So how can I show it to an outsider?" Li Xiaowan said sternly, "I need to know your true identity to determine how I will approach you. This will be beneficial for both of us. I don't think you should refuse my offer, do you dare?" Li Ziqi interrupted Li Xiaowan's explanation and repeated in a very cold tone, "You want my blood sample? Do you dare?" Boom! A brilliant starburst erupted from Li Ziqi's chest, slowly swirling around his body. Countless beautiful stardust drifted from the starburst, instantly transforming the entire room into a sea of colorful stars. Li Xiaowan, ensconced within the sea of stars, felt a rustle of billions of stardust in astonishment. The pressure from the very source of power so intensely compelled her, a heart forged through countless bloody battles, to kneel and worship. The blood-red river could make vampires tremble and revere, and the temple's perfect star swirl was equally a miracle for humanity. The temple's monks held aloft a position of supreme power, and those possessing the perfect star swirl held the highest position. Though the temple had withdrawn from the Federation 400 years ago, the lingering influence of the gods, whose reign had lasted for countless years, had never truly departed. Chapter 125. What I like. The sleek, magnetically powered sedan sped through the streets of Star City, leaving Li Ziyi sitting in the passenger seat, feeling as if he were experiencing a murderous threat. Just half an hour earlier, Li Ziyi had, in a fit of rage, revealed his perfect star swirl and coldly demanded of Li Xiaowan, "Do you dare?" Then, Li Ziyi saw the mad fire in Li Xiaowan's eyes. It was the first time he had seen such a furious look in a human's eyes, and the first time he had felt such intense rage in a woman. Since arriving in this world, Li Ziyi had come into contact with three powerful superpowered women, Mu Yu, Chen Tong, and Li Xiaowan. Li Xiaowan's strength might not be the greatest of the three, but her aura was undoubtedly the most aggressive. Empowered by the perfect star swirl, Li Ziyi exerted immense psychological pressure on Li Xiaowan, but she was only temporarily repressed by the pressure before she shrugged it off, her murderous aura radiating from her. In that moment, Li Ziyi saw not some wealthy young lady, but a brave warrior, fighting bravely. Just like the temple warriors who marched courageously forward, singing Ode to Justice alongside Che in the secret realm of slaughter. Freed from Zhangzhuan's pressure, Li Xiaowan quickly subsided, her rage and murderous intent fading. She said to Li Ziyi with a half-smile, "How interesting. You truly are a treasure." In that instant, Li Ziyi had the illusion that he saw desire for conquest in Li Xiaowan's eyes. The magnetic sedan sped along the streets of Star City for half an hour, scaring off countless privileged vehicles along the way, before finally stopping outside the gates of the supervisory department. Li Ziyi was about to open the door and exit when he found it locked. "I'll just say a few words, and then you can get out." Li Xiaowan's rage seemed to have been fully released, her voice cold and even. "I'm the 17th child in the Li family. When I was born, everyone called me 17th Miss. Above me were my steady eldest brother, my clever second sister, and my cunning third brother. The family's important assets were destined to remain with me, but more than a decade has passed, and now everyone calls me Big Miss. Even many of the collateral relatives simply call me Big Sister, and the family's most important first army has also fallen into my hands." Li Ziyi listened to Li Xiaowan's calm narration, somewhat puzzled as to how someone of Li Xiaowan's rank could babble so much about their innermost thoughts to an outsider. Click, the electric train's door unlocked. Li Ziyi glanced at Li Xiaowan, reached out to open the door, and got out. But just as Li Ziyi was halfway out of the electric train, Li Xiaowan said something behind him that nearly made him fall back into his seat. Li Xiaowan, never miss anything I set my sights on. If I set my mind to it, I'll definitely get it." Li Ziyi suddenly turned around and sternly addressed her, "I'm not what you call me, it's all the same." Bang! The car door closed, and the magnetic car roared to life, soaring onto the street again, leaving Li Ziyi standing there gritting his teeth. Fuck, forget it. After the magnetic car sped a short distance, its speed gradually slowed. Li Xiaowan, her face tense, took several deep breaths, her face turning from red to white, then back again, repeatedly, before she finally stabilized. She opened the communication terminal inside the magnetic car and asked in a very authoritative tone, "How is the investigation going on with the matter I asked you to investigate, sister? I found some relevant information and will transmit it to you now." Moments later, Li Xiaowan was presented with a wealth of detailed information, every piece of which was related to Li Ziyi, or suspected to be related. Li Xiaowan, browsing the information, keenly grasped a subtle point. The incident in Qinghai community where Wilk was silenced and John was killed. When Li Ziyi explained the Blood River incident that occurred in Qinghai community last night, he had mentioned the pursuit of the vampire spy Wilk's murder. But now, Li Xiaowan discovered that a small part of the process between Wilk's murder and the Qinghai incident was missing. This small part seemed to be completed in the information she had just obtained. Number 6. The rainy night fight on Xinghu Street. Was it you? As the magnetic car took off again, rushing towards a building in District 2 of Guangxing City. Inside the Guangxing City Garrison's office building, Lin Zhe was reporting on the events of the previous night to his immediate superior, Zhao Tai. General Zhao, Li Kaiao's appearance last night was too strange. I can't be sure whether the supervisory department and the Jingchuan Li family have reached an alliance agreement, so I can't forcefully bring back all the evidence. Can't be sure? Is it within the scope of our garrison's duties to determine other people's attitudes? Why didn't you contact me at the time and withdrew privately? The garrison's commander, Zhao Tai, was a federal major general with a serious expression. He was not satisfied with Lin Zhe's explanation. Lin Zhe didn't explain, but he was cursing Zhao Tai in his heart. Do you have the guts to say these words in front of Li Kaiao? See what you can do. This matter can't be let go like this, because it involves the reputation of our garrison. Lin Zhe, you immediately. Ding ling ling ding ling ling. The red communicator on the desk in front of Zhao Tai suddenly rang. The ringtone was very rapid and harsh. Zhao Tai's face changed, and he hurriedly picked up the phone. What's going on? What did you say? Enemies are invading the garrison building. What are you all doing? We're a powerful military force defending Star City. If we have an enemy invasion, why don't you arrest them? What? Just one person? Who is it? Lin Zhe watched as his immediate superior, General Zhao Tai, who had been so arrogant moments before, slowly lost his temper, his righteous face flushing the color of pig liver. Lin Zhe was an S-class esper, with hearing far superior to that of an average person. He had clearly heard the intruder's name from the communicator, Li Kaiao. Snap! Zhao Tai hung up the communicator, glaring at Lin Zhe fiercely and demanding, didn't you say you didn't offend Li Kaiao last night? Then why is she attacking our garrison now? Lin Zhe was stunned. Are you actually blaming me? Didn't you just vow to restore the garrison's reputation? Li Kaiao is down there now, so go down and kill her. Aren't you also an S-class esper? Lin Zhe scoffed. Every S-class is different from every other S-class. Lin Zhe, looked down on S-class like Zhao Tai. But S-class like Li Kaiao also looked down on S-class like Lin Zhe. Lin Zhe, you are the one who caused this trouble. You need to go down and solve it right now. I don't care what method you use, but you must save the reputation of our garrison. A higher rank can crush a lower rank. Lin Zhe stood up, straightened his body, saluted, turned around and walked out the door. It takes 1 or 2 minutes to take the elevator from the 40th floor to the first floor, but Lin Zhe took the stairs and it took him 20 minutes to reach the site of the invasion, the Garrison Information Department. What a bunch of losers. They let people come in so brazenly and leave so brazenly. Lin Zhe walked into the information department with his hands behind his back, showing the attitude of a master. General Lin, we really couldn't resist. More than 30 guards were knocked down. Okay, let's not talk about this. Lin Zhe waved his hand in annoyance and asked, have you checked clearly? What is Li Kaiao doing here? The soldier from the information department whispered. She came to check the information of our garrison. We didn't allow her, so she did it herself. Then she went to the evidence room to get something, saying she wanted to use it for the investigation. Lin Zhe immediately asked, what evidence did she take away? The civilian soldier from the information department said with a bitter face, I don't know. You should go and see for yourself. Lin Zhe went to the evidence room and took a look, and immediately understood his colleague's difficulties. The evidence room was like a large-scale explosion. It was a mess. How could he find out what was missing? At this moment, Li Kaiao was holding a case file in her hand. The file came from a rainy street a few days ago. A Blood Clan spy ambushed an enemy, only to be violently counterattacked. All that remained at the scene were a few Gatling guns, mobile suits, and burned bodies. However, beneath a low wall, the garrison's cleanup crew found a blood sample. 10 minutes later, the sample was fed into a genetic analyzer, which quickly produced a genetic sequence. Li Kaiao carefully examined and compared the results, her eyes widening and her mouth widening in disbelief. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.